Hello everyone. This is your friend from Naruto Audio Fanfics, and we are back once again with a brand new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto became a Rinnegan god and rewrote the world with Yamanaka, Part 2. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to hit the like button, thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel for more amazing Naruto fanfics like this. So without wasting any more time, let's start today's fanfic. Tsunade stood still in front of the bars, keeping Naruto locked up. There were so many things that the mischievous Naruto could have done whilst he was here. Most would be fueled by stupidity and the thought that he hadn't done anything wrong. It was true that he hasn't done anything wrong, but he was being mature enough to keep calm throughout this issue. Someone would have raised hell about the injustice being done to him. Tsunade thanked Naruto for his handling of the situation. She could have done better to ensure that he doesn't end up locked up in this cell, but she had been worried more about the future implications of any issue being raised by this little hassle from that corrupt old fox. If anything, the Godime wanted to grab him by the throat and snap his neck just for being alive. She would at least give it to Danzo that he hasn't come this far by being stupid. Her sensei could have hanged him long time ago, but he didn't do anything. Tsunade could not understand why he didn't do anything, but she would not make the same mistake. If left alone, Danzo was just going to cause more troubles. Well, for Naruto, things couldn't get any worse than they have. It was still early morning, but she had seen the groups forming with people gossiping. Those were images that sent her gut into overdrive, but there was nothing she could do about it at the moment. She really did hope that no one confronted Naruto with this, but she was going to issue a statement denying the allegations about Naruto. Some sensible people would see the reason and stop hating on Naruto, but that wasn't something that one could bank on. Konoha's villagers have never been rational when it comes to Naruto and the Kyuubi. They were always quick to hate and judge. The slug princess smiled weakly towards Naruto, who stared back at her. Tsunade did not say the first word, but Naruto did. "You sure took your time to see me, Tsunade-sama," Naruto said as he stood up. He did so slowly before stretching his muscles. Movement was restricted in this place and that made him a little stiff. "But I guess you are here to free me." Tsunade nodded, but she did not move to unlock the cell. "You don't look too bad," she said in a weak tone. Naruto tilted his head to the side. The woman appeared to be hiding something, or perhaps was trying to ease into something difficult. If she wasn't here to free him, she was here to deliver bad news to him. That would be unexpected. From his conversation with Kakashi last night, he figured he would be released soon, and if Tsunade was going to come with bad news, that would change things. He had reached his tolerance limit. He wasn't going to stay here any longer, but it would depend on what the Godime Hokage was saying to him. If she was promising him something good, then he could tolerate this a little longer. He also knew that it wasn't safe here, knowing that Danzo could get to him at any moment he chose. "I think I have had worse than this," Naruto responded in a measured tone. He did not voice his thoughts to the Godime, he waited on her. Tsunade's mood just seemed to worsen at that. "It hasn't been a pleasant life, hasn't it?" she asked sadly. "From the emotional trauma you faced in the hands of the villagers to this. It is still remarkable that even after everything, you chose to fight to protect this village. If there was someone whose loyalty should never be questioned, it would be you. We are here. You are being accused of trying to kill Danzo. We have cleared you of any wrongdoing, and normally you would be free to do anything you want, but because you're Uzumaki Naruto, there is always something happening." Naruto narrowed his eyes thinly. This was perhaps something that had to do with Danzo's intentions. It wasn't a pleasant thing to swallow. Honestly, he was starting to fear for the worst now, because really, Naruto didn't want anything forced. Any forced movement would alter things in ways that he did not want. Well, nothing really went to script, isn't? You could never plan for life to play it in a certain way. There were always going to be forces greater than you which will push things out of your control. If Danzo planned something sinister, then he could not control that, and it would certainly change things for him. Naruto shook his head. Was he forgetting what Kakashi said to him the previous night? The villagers were acting funny. Naruto did not voice those words. He simply asked the Godime, thinking she had something different to say. "What is it?" Tsunade noted that Naruto's tone displayed no emotions when he asked. It was almost as if he was daring her to say bad news if she wanted to see his reaction to it. The Godime shook her head. Perhaps she was overthinking things. I won't say anything, but it will be better if you just see it yourself. It won't be something you will like, more like a return to those bitter old days of yours. I am sorry for this. If there was something I could do to have stopped it, I would have. The woman sounded in pain when she said those words. Meet me in my office when you are ready. Tsunade said those words and unlocked the cell. She walked away from the blonde Uzumaki without saying anything further. Naruto stepped out of the cell, but he did not feel free. There was no freedom raining down on him. If anything, the world just seemed to get heavier and oxygen a little more expensive that he had to labor for it. He feared the world that he was going to see. Kakashi didn't paint a good picture and Tsunade has just made it worse. About 10 minutes later. To Kurama, this was both laughable and sad. He had first laughed when he noted what was happening in the streets of the Hidden Leaf. The villagers were doing what they used to do before. Well, it wasn't exactly the same, but there were stares and hushed whispers as the blonde moved about the streets. It hadn't been funny, but the Biju had burst into laughter before calming down to look at it sadly. He didn't think a couple of nights in Anbu cells would result in the blonde going back to that old life. He was sure that perverted Sannin was going to preach for Naruto to do more good for the villagers to prove himself to be a good person. He had been trying that, but now he would have to do that all over again. Kurama didn't think so. He would not have the patience to do something like that. Hell, if Naruto freed him now, he would not have a problem in making this village a former hidden village. Yes, there was no Yondaime Hokage this time around. He could wipe out this entire village within a couple of minutes. The perverted Sannin wasn't here to summon those toads to stand in his way. There was no one remotely powerful enough to stand before him. Kurama thought of tempting Naruto. If you're tired of all these, I have no problem in letting loose. The Biju said. I would even be content with staying in here for a little while longer without any thought to escape the seal. The Biju said devilishly. Naruto's form appeared before the Biju. The blonde was wearing an expressionless mask on his face. It was just dead of any emotion. When he spoke, the tone did not betray the expression on his face. What makes you think I would even go that far? Kurama shrugged indifferently before replying. I don't know. What about the anger and hatred I feel from you? What? You have taken enough. Don't you think I can't sense those emotions from you? You do enough to control them, but someone would have snapped already. It nevertheless doesn't change the fact that you have them deep in your heart. Naruto was silent for a couple of moments. I'm not that ignorant that I would fail to notice the emotions that I have. He was very much aware of the negative emotions he had in him. They were buried deep within his heart. He tried to suppress them, but this kind of reality made it very difficult. There was a little voice inside his head telling him to punish this treachery, to do something about this. What had he done to these people to deserve this? Just a little rumor and the fact that he was locked up in Anbu cells and they were ready to revisit their old memories. Had it been someone else, they wouldn't have cared or even react in such a manner. He was different from everyone else. He was the host of the Biju that killed their loved their ones. To some of them he sheltered the Biju and to some he had been the Biju itself, such a sad reality. Now, the Biju must influence his decisions, he must be going insane. What was Danzo trying to achieve from doing all these? Did he want to isolate him so that he could manipulate him a little easier? A foolish move. It had its consequences, but he was simply not going to allow that snake to manipulate him because he was feeling lost. He wasn't that stupid to forget that this was because the man started the fire. If Danzo thought he could manipulate him, then he was as arrogant as Orochimaru thinking he could destroy the Hidden Leaf. What are you going to do about this? You should know that as things stand, even if you wanted to be in their good graces, you would have to save them from total destruction for them to look at you fondly. Even if such an event were to occur, would you even be motivated to save them after everything? Naruto refused to respond to the question. It was something deep that would get him having thoughts he did not wish to have at this time. He had to face the Godime Hokage. No wonder the woman looked as if she was carrying the entire elemental nations over her shoulders. The situation was bleak and could destroy any hopes a person has. Why are you talking as if there was a plan to stay in this village forever? Naruto asked the Kyuubi. The situation wasn't desirable and he hadn't done anything to make these people hate him, but there had been no intention from his side to kiss their behinds in an attempt to get them to like him. He could discuss ways with Tsunade, but it was all just going to be pointless talk because he had plans to leave this village for something greater. This would just make it easy for him to leave. Of course, this didn't mean that this situation didn't wound him. Kurama's response wasn't immediate, but it did come. With you dwindling around the village, I thought you would be having second thoughts. The moment you were arrested, you could have broken out of the cells and make your escape. With what you're going to do, will attempting to kill Danzo really be the worst thing you would have done? Naruto nearly frowned upon hearing those words. Yes, he was going to do so many things, many unspeakable things. This was just wrong because the villagers hated him for something he hadn't done. It was all just rumor, and the fact that he was walking within the streets should mean that he was cleared of any wrongdoing, but they were still looking at him with suspicious eyes. Perhaps he was being hesitant on doing what he had planned on doing. It wasn't going to be an easy road. I have my reasons, but this isn't something that should really get me down. Naruto said those words with a sigh. He stopped walking for a moment and looked up with his eyes closed. He sucked in the cold air, trying to get a feel of the village. He opened cold blue eyes and held out his right hand, looking as if he wanted to catch the sun. One of these days, I will stand in this village wearing mourning clothes, and this village will learn to resent my name more than it has yours. Kurama smiled. Now there is some resolve in your tone. The nine-tailed Biju said. It might be because I am a little bitter, Naruto said with a shake of his head. Wouldn't it be something else if I could raise my hand like this and make clouds? From them, we would decide on whether to cast lightning jutsu or water-based jutsu, perhaps with even a little of wind. Kurama was silent as he thought of an image Naruto had just painted. You'd have to be a god to do something like that, the Biju said a bit sarcastically. Holding the title of kami wouldn't be so bad. Only gods can change the landscape and how people behave. Naruto said calmly. People fear power, and only those with power influence the masses. Even though I will have to force my will on people, I won't mind much because the end game will suit what I desire. With your power, it shouldn't be impossible to achieve, even if it takes 10 years, with an army clones that should be like 100 years of training. With my power, I should be able to source any shortage of chakra. The Biju said. But you should be able to build up your own chakra stamina. To cast such powerful jutsu you'd need vast amounts of chakra. Naruto continued staring into the sky before responding. I can imagine. I figure trying to create thunderclouds would mean having to form storm conditions. Just having to create that condition will mean using a lot of chakra. The blonde said calmly before looking at the road ahead of him. How much more chakra did someone like Hashirama have? Kurama was silent for a couple of moments before responding. I have not met any human who has more chakra than a tailed beast. Naruto was surprised at this. He shook his head. Well, that is something we will think of doing once we begin the real training. He paused for a moment before speaking once more. The Godime is waiting for me. What are you going to discuss with her? Kurama asked. I don't know, Naruto said. Tsunade's office. Things may be bad, but at least Naruto had people who cared for him, Kakashi thought as he looked at the gloomy expression on Tsunade's face. There has never been doubt that the Godime Hokage cared for the blonde Uzumaki, but it was nevertheless refreshing to see it on her face at a time like this. Naruto was going to need people close to him to be there for him. He still had his friends, and they were good friends. Still, this was a dramatic turn of events. Danzo was always scheming something, but this time he had gone too far. Then again, where are the limits for the War Hawk? Didn't he commit treason by trying to get him to kill the Sandaime Hokage so that he could finally become Hokage? Tsunade-sama, Kakashi started in a very calm tone. I understand that Danzo has rallied the villagers against Naruto, and acting in the open might leave a door open for violence from the civilians. Most shinobi population don't even know the dark things that he is capable of doing, but it won't matter since you are the Godime Hokage. Why are not doing anything against him? The Jonin understood that being reckless would only cost them dearly. Kakashi didn't think that they're still shinobi who hated Naruto for what happened years ago. They were smart and understood things better, unlike the bitter villagers. Besides that, the shinobi have worked with the blonde Uzumaki, so they knew his personality by now. Tsunade didn't offer an immediate response, but when she did, her tone was low yet it was very firm. Unlike the Sandame, I will not leave Danzo to act as he pleases. At this age, there is no need for him to operate and I will shut him down. Of course, I understand that he will not simply lie down if I choose to force the issue. It will be either fleeing or putting up a fight. I simply cannot allow things to spill in the open for the villagers to see everything. I'm displeased with them, but I cannot allow them to get caught in the crossfire of shinobi matters. Danzo will be dealt with and we will do it in a way that erases his existence from this village along with the Foundation. Personally, I don't want anything to happen to his people. I would rather they fall under my command, but we know that Danzo teaches utmost loyalty to him, so I don't know if they will be able to switch should Danzo be killed. Kakashi was silent for a couple of moments before finally opening his mouth. You don't want to cause unnecessary bloodshed. Tsunade nodded. I can't use the term innocent because I know there are things that they have done that can be considered treason. Sai came in just to spy on Naruto for Danzo. We knew that, but we didn't think that it would lead to such a situation. They are all guilty as their master. Yet, she was not willing to have them all killed along with Danzo in a very SS rank mission. What about Naruto? I know he just got back, but it would be best if he went away while I try to solve this Danzo issue, or he could go away after we have solved things. Tsunade said calmly. This is just a thought. I don't know if Naruto will accept it. We have to do what is best for Naruto, mentally. For now, the village can wait. Naruto's mental state and happiness must come first. This wasn't what they taught at the academy, but it would do in this situation. The village was the one that was wrong in this situation. Naruto could be afforded the chance to put himself first over the village as long as there were no treasonous thoughts, and as the Hokage, she consented to it. She would not care what anyone says or what the clan heads have to say about it. The decision was hers and she would do what she felt was best for everyone. The village calmed down with Naruto present. Amway. She could try to make them see sense and expose Danzo's lies to them. Nodding to herself, Tsunade was going to work on that. She was going to let them know that they should be ashamed of themselves. Naruto was innocent and Danzo was the guilty bastard who had tried to take away Naruto for the Kyuubi's power and resorted to dirty tricks when that failed. If she so wished, she could even tell them that the reason the blonde Uzumaki was chosen to be the Kyuubi's Jinchuriki was because he was Minato's son. They could deny it all they liked, but pictures of a pregnant Kushina along with Minato were there. Even a stupid person would ask what has happened to the child of the Yondaime Hokage if his wife had been pregnant days before the Kyuubi incident. Kakashi did not dispute the thought of Naruto taking some time away from the village. There was not much that the blonde Uzumaki could do to change the situation at the time. Before the Jonin could say something to Tsunade, there was a knock at the door. Tsunade didn't have to say anything for Naruto to open the door. There was a bit of a chill air that swept into the office when the Uzumaki walked in. He didn't say anything though, but just settled on the free chair beside Kakashi. When no one said anything, Naruto spoke. I wasn't expecting to see you, Kakashi-sensei. Naruto said in a very calm tone. When you said things had changed, I thought it wouldn't be as bad as I had feared. Naruto said to Kakashi in a quiet tone. Well, it isn't as bad as it was last time around when walking around the streets was like walking inside a steam-hot pot. He didn't have to think on whether he could live with this situation because he wasn't going to live in this village for much longer. He was going to leave at any moment, even tomorrow or the moment he leaves this office. He could disappear from the Hidden Leaf for a couple of years. There was so much training that he had to do and so much more he needed to learn. He didn't need to see his friends. Seeing them look gloomy over his situation would just make him feel miserable about leaving. He knew that they were going to have some second thoughts. They were going to look at this and only say it is because the villagers treated him in this manner that he decided to flee the Hidden Leaf. He could not avoid it though. Ideally, he would have liked to leave on better terms, but this was not what he expected. It wasn't going to change anything nevertheless. Kakashi quietly absorbed Naruto's words before thinking about the younger days of Naruto. The blonde had bravely walked around the Hidden Leaf even though most villagers held contemptuous thoughts about him. He hadn't minded, but just walked with a brave face, a wide grin, and didn't seem to care about anything in the world. But that statement now just revealed that he did care about things. There had been those lonely looks when the blonde was alone. those questions that the Sandaime faced when he went to visit Naruto in his apartment. There was no doubt though, Naruto had been happy in Team 7. They had been like a family. Kakashi cherished those memories and he was sure his blonde student held those memories more dearly than anyone else. It was perhaps the only part of his life that made him happy. What do you think about it? Kakashi asked, just to see how Naruto would respond. Naruto stared at Tsunade's eyes for a long minute. A sad smile flicked through his expression for a second before being replaced by a neutral look. It's really sad. I've never really given myself the moment to hate because I realized it wouldn't make me happy but much more miserable than I was. It turned out to be the right decision when I enjoyed my time in Team 7. Even at this stage, my thoughts are not mixed, but I cannot say that I hate the villagers for this. Perhaps I'm being cynical, but when it is coming from them, I don't think I should lose my sleep over it. That doesn't mean that I love every moment of this, not at all. I don't even understand why they could go back so quickly. I don't want to understand. My thoughts of Danzo are different altogether. The words were a bit cold, but there didn't appear to be any dark thoughts lingering around the corner when the blonde spoke, not even when he spoke of Danzo. Tsunade was curious. How could he not come to hate the villagers for this? Was he just ignoring the negative emotions instead of dealing with them? If he was just pushing them at the back of his head, then he was probably going to explode one day. Why don't you want to understand? Tsunade asked. Her tone hardened. Naruto raised an eyebrow at the tone. It sounded forceful. But he didn't mind responding to it. Honestly, I want to say I just don't care about it anymore. If my dream was still to become Hokage of this village, then I would be worried, but that isn't a priority for me anymore. Life is something else, isn't it? Before I left, I shouted being Hokage and really, it looked as if it would be possible when they cheered for me at the Chunin exams. With humans, anything can change. I have changed and they change every morning. One little thing about the Kyuubi and they are ready to abandon all the good memories and focus on their fears. Well, fear is a powerful thing, it can manipulate even the mightiest. So many decisions are taken because of fear, but that is life, unfortunately, for me. Tsunade frowned. She didn't want to think deep about this. She was already thinking too much about this thing about Danzo and how to deal with him. Jiraiya could deal with this. From what the Sannin has said, the blonde Uzumaki was very close to him. She could not penetrate through that cold exterior. The Godime Hokage sighed before shifting to the main subject. I called you here because I want to discuss how we are going to deal with this issue. Although I don't want to admit it, but you have grown and you need to know. This situation must be handled carefully, and Danzo must be punished for this treachery. I want to do it quietly. Naruto didn't smile at hearing that, he just tilted his head to the side, thinking about what the slug princess might be trying to suggest. There was something big that was going to happen and Naruto wasn't sure he wanted to be part of it. Then again, it could be his farewell message. Trashes like Danzo were the first ones who needed to be destroyed for a better world to come. I see you trying to convince the villagers that I did not try anything and that Danzo was actually the one who attempted to do something to me. It would be hard for the villagers to believe. They know what the Kyuubi can do and they know Danzo is one of the village elders. Shinobi population wouldn't have troubles, but civilians don't know anything. Between the host of the Kyuubi and a village elder, who is credible before their eyes, who do you think they will believe? Tsunade sneered in thought, but she gave Naruto a firm response. They will believe that snake. However, I'm still Tsunade, one of the legendary Sannins. When I came back here, they were singing my name. I will remind them it was you who convinced me to come back, and if they think I would lie like that to them, I will offer my resignation as Hokage. I've had no troubles living outside this village and I can do it again. You must understand that there are things worth protecting. Jiraiya couldn't convince me to come back to this village, no one could. I gambled, drank through my days. I was miserable for years, but you came along. It was your action and your words that convinced me to come back to this village. I have been at peace, happy since I came back. I owe that to you. Naruto smiled. It was a happy smile and it didn't last for just a second. He was honestly happy to hear those words from the woman. He wasn't going to deny that she had become a part of his family, but that would be destroyed when it turns this world into its knees. It was really a sad thing that he would hurt this woman who was willing to resign as the godime of this village for him, for the truth about him. It was really going to be a miserable existence out in the wild. If it would hurt Tsunade, how much more his friends and Jiraiya? What about Kakashi? He was going to lose another student. Yes, there would be a lot of people who were going to be hurt by his decision. For a moment, the smile on his face almost slipped off, but he held it firmly. Well, at least he was going to be quiet for a couple of years in the underground. It would give them much more time to think and forget about him. Hearing that makes me happy, Ba-chan. Naruto said. He could not hide the sadness in his tone. Neither Kakashi nor the Slug Princess commented on it. They just looked at each other for a moment before looking back at the blonde Uzumaki. What are you planning to do to Danzo? He must be executed for treason. Tsunade said in a tone of finality. It isn't going to be easy as he will not lie down and allow himself to be hanged. We must take measures to outmaneuver him and manage his route Anbu. We must deal with him in a way that they don't end up trying to get revenge for his death should they remain alive in the aftermath. Danzo's Anbu are highly trained, but they are not that many. Last time, the Sandaime managed to surround them with his Anbu. However, since this time around, something has to happen to Danzo. It's not going to end with a stalemate. There will be bloodshed. Kakashi added. Tsunade nodded in agreement. Nothing is going to happen until Jiraiya returns. It has to happen quietly in the underground. Anyone who isn't involved must not know about it. The godime paused for a moment before asking. Have you killed someone, Naruto? You want me to take part in this? He asked. You don't have to worry about me. The blonde Uzumaki said. This would be his last mission for the Hidden Leaf. He could do that and flex his muscles, but afterwards, he would be gone. The day that follows Konoha would wake up with him gone from the village. There would be no need to blame him for the murders if it was going to be hidden. People would ask questions later, but he did not worry about that. Are you sure? Naruto nodded. I have grown, he said before standing. I think I'm going to go have some ramen. I need something to soothe my soul. That said, the blonde Uzumaki walked away from the office without saying another word. Still within the Hokage Tower, Naruto came across what he recalled as Danzo's fan club. But according to Jiraiya, since Tsunade led the charge, they have been a little different in their support of Danzo. Nevertheless, they were supporters of the War Hawk and would not mind digging him out of any hole he dug himself into. Those old wrinkled faces of the village's elders stared at him unflinching. You walk proudly after everything that has happened. The old woman said in a cold tone. Why should I act any differently? I'm not guilty of anything. It doesn't matter if you're guilty or not. Kaharu quickly said. Because of this, the village has lost its peace once more. The villagers are on edge thinking the Kyuubi will appear out of nowhere again. Naruto raised an eyebrow at this. Yes, she probably knew that Danzo had tried and failed to get his hands on him and resorted to such dirty tricks. Shouldn't you blame Danzo for that? The woman sneered. Danzo is blameless. He has always thought of Konoha in everything he does. The village has always come first in everything. Naruto stared back for a couple of seconds before shaking his head. He walked past the old pair without saying another word. He really didn't have the time to entertain such people of this foolishness. They could say whatever they felt was right in their heads. Perhaps old age was getting to them. But he wasn't going to stand there lest he ends up getting riled over something he could just ignore. Back in Tsunade's office, Jiraiya told me that Naruto had changed, but I didn't want to believe it. Tsunade said in a slightly tired tone. The more I see him, the more I realize that he has truly changed. He isn't the same brat he was back then. It isn't a bad thing, but I do miss those big smiles of his, the enthusiasm he showed when he spoke about becoming Hokage. I didn't think that a day would come when it would no longer be his dream. Honestly, Tsunade didn't know how to take this. When Naruto kept silent about this since his return, she had suspected something was up. Well, the cards were out now, but that didn't ease her worries. She couldn't even guess what the blonde was thinking. He didn't carry all his emotions on his face these days, but at least today he did reveal some of his thoughts. Tsunade really wished he had said something different. It wouldn't have worried her. At this stage, she was going to look for a good drink by lunchtime. I'm sure one person who will be baffled is Konohamaru. Kakashi said with a shake of his head. But I guess this is something that Jiraiya-sama already knew. Tsunade nodded. You have spent more time with him. How much difference do you see between this time and before he was stabbed by Sasuke? Kakashi seemed to flinch at the mention of Sasuke. It was actually the thought that he had used the jutsu that the Jonin had taught the Uchiha that made him flinch. He's a different person, but still Naruto. That doesn't make sense. Suan said. If he has changed, then he isn't the Na. The slug princess trailed off when Koharu and Homura smoothly walked into the office. The two stood behind Kakashi and addressed the Godime Hokage. Are you just going to sit here whilst you watch the atmosphere in the streets becomes toxic? Koharu said to the Godime. Whether Naruto is guilty or not, something has to be done about this matter. It won't take long for some to suspect that Naruto may be manipulating your actions. You know things start little and someone pours in oil. Sooner or later, it becomes a wildfire that cannot be controlled. We need to control this matter before it gets out of control. Tsunade leaned back to her chair before folding her hands across her chest. Tell me, Koharu, what do you suggest I do? You're not even accusing Naruto of trying to kill Danzo and yet you're not pointing any fingers towards him. Danzo will always do everything for Konoha. Whatever he does is always for the good of the hidden leaf. Koharu was firm on that note. She wasn't going as far as to say that she didn't think Naruto attacked Danzo. She has had a few encounters with the blonde when he was growing up. If anything, he had been an idiot and there was no way that was a mask. The only thing she could accuse the blonde Uzumaki of being guilty was being favored by the Hokages and not using the Kyuubi's power for the village's sake. She did have reservations about the blonde. 1. She did not trust him, not even the least. Considering the past that he has to face, there was a chance that he could flee the village. Perhaps Danzo was trying to avoid that. It would be a disaster for the Kyuubi to be taken by one of their enemies. It would certainly raise levels of fear within the village, and that was something they had to avoid at all costs. You should take Naruto off the streets and put him in Anbu. If the villagers don't see him, they will calm down a bit. Besides, when he is in Anbu, he can be monitored fairly. Homura said. You know that he is a flight risk. If he wasn't, this situation has made that a possibility. Tsunade kept a straight face when the old man said those words, but if she were to be honest, the thought did cross her mind. Although Naruto could be marked as a flight risk, she just didn't think that the blonde would go that far. That was just her opinion though. Logically, it made more sense for the blonde to go away. He could go to Sunagaku, if he knew how much Gaara seemed to value him. Naruto had said it. He no longer cared. He wasn't going to try to do anything good in order to win them over because he no longer cared. He didn't want their approval. He didn't want to become Hokage anymore. There was something that he was after. If he no longer wanted to become Hokage, he was going to do something. She just couldn't put a finger on it. You must act quickly, Tsunade. Koharu said in a stern tone before walking away from the office along with her partner in crime. Kakashi stared at the Godime for a long minute before asking something. Did you consider that he could be a flight risk when he was here? Is that why you didn't tell him you were thinking he should just depart the village for a while until things calm down? You heard him, Kakashi. He doesn't care. He doesn't want to understand anything about them. Even if Naruto has friends in this village, do you think that would be enough to keep him here if he can be happy elsewhere? When you think about it, take note that he no longer has any desire to lead this village. You can as well say, he has lost his love for Konoha. Well, I can't blame him after everything. The Jonin could not deny anything the Godime had said, but he did not comment on it. He merely stood up. I will hear what Jiraiya-sama has to say when he comes back. But I will try to talk to Naruto just to see what he plans on doing. Later, Training Ground 7. Sakura looked sadly into the skies, surrounded by her friends. Life was a bit unfair, wasn't it? Perhaps she was being selfish, but she had lost Sasuke, her dear love, but now Naruto was going through another situation. They could all vouch for Naruto's character, but they didn't share the same thoughts as the villagers. Things were not going smoothly, and on top of that, since Naruto returned from his training trip, it has felt as if she was losing him by the second. The Pinkett shook her head. Now wasn't the time to think about her feelings. She had to think about Naruto. What was happening to his life wasn't what she would like for her teammate. It was unacceptable, and they didn't even have to see anything to defend their friend. They knew that their Naruto would never do something like that. Has anyone even seen Naruto? Ino asked quietly. My dad said he was going to be released because he was cleared of any wrongdoing. A pity that something like that had happened. She was even beginning to like this new Naruto. He wasn't like that loud and idiotic blonde who was hopelessly in love with Sakura. Thinking of it, he hasn't called Sakura-chan, since his return, has he? Now that was something interesting. Ino shook her head before she lost track of her thoughts. Sakura shook her head. I haven't seen him, but I know he was released today, she said in a sad tone. I doubt he would take any joy in walking around the streets when things are like this. Kiba looked around for a moment before speaking his thoughts. Isn't anyone going to talk about how Naruto is the host of the Kyuubi? I mean the Kyuubi. The freaking beast that nearly destroyed this village. He was honestly baffled that he had known the blonde idiot for such a long time, and yet he didn't know that he held such a burden within him. Well, the fact that Naruto wasn't anything like Gaara just meant that being a Jinchuriki didn't change the way he lived his life. Still, how could he not know about this? Naruto never talked about it to anyone. Never. He never let it slip, not even in his happiest days. Isn't it something that despite being a loudmouth who couldn't keep things to himself, he never let anyone know about it? Ino said with a curious look about her. I wonder what more secrets he could be hiding. Tenten shook her head at that expression from Ino. Really? At this time, she was thinking of discovering more secrets from the blonde. It was apparent that she didn't think too much about Naruto being a Jinchuriki of a Biju that nearly destroyed the hidden leaf. Then again, none of her friends seemed to be filtered with contempt when Kiba said those words. Surprisingly, Hinata chose to speak at that moment. I doubt Naruto would be avoiding the streets because of something like this. This isn't the worst of what he has faced in his life. There was no way she could not remember those pitiful days. Even her father told her to stay away from the blonde Jinchuriki. Everyone had looked at him with contempt when he was younger and of fragile heart. But above everything, he had always smiled and kept strong. At least now, he was grown and this wasn't as bad as it had been when he was younger. Hinata's words brought silence as they tried to contemplate the meaning of her words. What do you mean by that, Hinata? The idiot always wore a smile. Shikamaru sighed tiredly. This was all just a mess he would rather not deal with. Really, instead of coming here, he could have preferred to just go somewhere else and watch the clouds or just take a nap. There was nothing that was going to change in whatever they were going to say to each other. If something was going to change, it would be up to Naruto or the Godime Hokage. They could only offer emotional support to their friend. But would the new Naruto really accept that? Shikamaru could not tell. He doubted the Naruto he has been seeing over the past days would be someone honestly troubled by this. But of course, it didn't mean it was something he could just take on the chin and continue walking as if nothing has happened. Someone spread a rumor that he had tried to kill a village elder and was being influenced by the Kyuubi. People suspected things and then were remembering the day the Biju wreaked havoc within the leaf. Perhaps that forgotten fear just returned. There was nothing that the civilians feared more than the Kyuubi. Even shinobi feared the Biju. If it appeared once more, many would run to safety places along with civilians. It isn't surprising that you never noticed what happened in his life, Shikamaru said to Kiba. He wasn't going to tell the unpleasant story of how Naruto was hated by the villagers, called a demon, and parents warning their children off the blonde. Despite being a censor, observation was never Kiba's strength, well, unless it is a mission. It was the voice of Naruto. All eyes turned towards a tree nearby. The blonde was sitting on a tree branch, overlooking the group with an expressionless mask on his face. Are you insulting me, Tem? Kiba demanded, ready to launch an attack towards the blonde. No, just making an observation. Naruto responded a bit carelessly. Hinata, I never considered how much your eyes were always on me, watching my every move. Of everyone, you are the one who knows how much I've had to suffer. Look at it in this way. I housed a Biju that killed many people, loved ones. To the villagers of this village, I was nothing more than a spawn of that demon. To make matters worse, I was an orphan. There were no parents to claim me who could say they made me. People hated me, as they hated the Kyuubi. I got kicked out of the orphanage, and by age 5, I was already living by myself. The Sandaime passed a law that no one should say, Kyubi, or even talk about it. Instead, the people resorted to calling me a demon. This is why our generation never knew about it. Parents just told their children to stay away from me because I was no good. As a result, I couldn't make any friends. Do you know what was worse? Even I didn't know I was a Jinchuriki. My entire life in the academy, I was hated, and didn't know why. Confusing. There had been moments I thought perhaps I was a demon. Don't you guys find it odd that I failed the graduation exam, but the next day I came back with a headband? I failed because I couldn't create a bunshin, simple jutsu really, and those who should fail to do it are those like Lee. He meant no offense in that. Mizuki told me of a way to pass, steal the forbidden scroll and learn a jutsu from it. I stole the scroll from the Sandaime's office and learned what you call my signature jutsu, Cage Bunshin. Within a couple of hours, I learned that jutsu. That was the night Mizuki told me I housed the Kyubi, and the night Iruka passed me for completing a B rank mission. Oh yeah, I defeated Mizuki by myself. So, I have always been cool. Ino snorted at those last words. Yeah right, she said. You were far from cool. She said. Well, at least you are now. For those girls who like bad boys will surely be all over you now. I'm sure they will be in dreamland, hearing how you survived torture in Anbu cells, accusations of killing a village elder. Naruto raised an eyebrow before smiling. I don't get that part of you, Ino. Well, the blonde has always been something else, just never interested him. The feeling was mutual though. However, he was sure in the younger days, Ino would have thought of the idea of a relationship with him to be the worst nightmare. Though, I must say, I'm honored that a delightful girl as you thinks that, regardless of how slightly twisted it was. Sakura looked at the smile on Naruto's face and then at Ino. She shook her head. Was this really happening? If anything, it looked as if Ino was flirting with Naruto. She had never thought something like that would be possible, but it was happening. Sure, Naruto wasn't the same anymore. He wasn't asking her out and never looked at her in the same way as he did before, but he was still Naruto. She would never think of him in any other way other than a friend, a good friend. There had been so many moments that they passed through because of him. Have you no shame, Ino? Sakura demanded. She didn't wait for a response though, as she chose to focus on the important matter. I never actually noticed. You were always talking loud, saying stupid things, and I may have added to the insults. Sakura sounded a bit bitter at this. I did say some insensitive things to you. You were actually the one person out of everyone here who said insensitive things to me. Naruto said to Sakura. Of course, those words only made the Pinkett look down in shame. But that is in the past now. Why didn't you ever say anything? Like I said, I didn't know about it until the night of graduation. Back then, I was afraid of losing friends if they found out about it. Now, it never seemed convenient. Naruto said a bit carelessly. He turned to Neji. When I spoke about crafting your own fate, I said it because I carried a bigger burden than you did. You could say Jinchurikis are fated to be used as weapons, hated and betrayed. I have experienced a couple of things, but I have never allowed any of it to determine my future. The blonde Uzumaki said before falling silent for a couple of seconds. You guys don't have to worry about me. It really means a lot though, that you have gathered here because you care. I won't forget that. He smiled before disappearing in a puff of smoke. That was a clone. Shikamaru sighed before turning away from the group. Everything was settled. There was nothing to worry about. Naruto didn't have mental problems that needed healing. Where are you going? I don't see any reason to stay here, Shikamaru said. I'm sure Naruto has already spoken to the Hokage about this matter. They probably have a way of dealing with it. We will see in the next couple of days. He wasn't going to say Naruto's indifference about the matter was a little startling. Those were thoughts that needed to be kept to himself. If he had the energy, he would seek out the blonde Uzumaki to question him about it, but he didn't have any and wasn't going to do anything unless an opportunity presented itself in a silver platter. Foundation bases. It wasn't often that Jiraiya took reckless decisions to charge into enemy territories in anger. Well, he has walked into enemy lands but never fueled by anger. This time it was different, and if Danzo wanted to fight him, Jiraiya was prepared to retaliate. He was even willing to allow the man to see his senjutsu in the process. He simply could not allow the man to walk freely without letting him know of his feelings regarding this mess he has just caused. The Foundation Anbu didn't try to fight him, as most shinobi who fear his name. They had greeted him stiffly and escorted him to their master. The old war hawk was sitting on a throne-like chair, his never-changing expression glaring down at his face. I didn't know you knew about this place's entrance. I don't remember the last time you stepped in here. Danzo said to Jiraiya. That wasn't to say that Anbu didn't know about it. Maybe some of them didn't know, but the old ones knew. Some of them had charged into this place along with the Sandaime Hokage when he had made the attempt to get the old man assassinated by Kakashi. What a failure that was. But Jiraiya was always away from the village, so he never came around this part of Konoha's darkness. Just because I never come doesn't mean I don't know. Jiraiya said sternly. Kakashi worked for you and so did Itachi. I think you are forgetting that I run a spy network. Do you think that I'd miss things happening in this village? There have been things that happened in your absence, and even after they happened, you never came back in time. Danzo said effortlessly. That is something that has to be dealt with. Well, since Tsunade returned to become Hokage, your presence and activities within the village have increased. At least that is a change. Sensei let a couple of things go your way even when you tried to have him killed. I'd always told him to take a firm action with you, but he insisted on doing things his way. However, when you framed Naruto for trying to kill you, you crossed a line. You made things personal, Jiraiya said in a cold tone, leaking a murderous intent that put the present agents on edge. Take me seriously when I say that you will not get away with it. The Sannin said those words and stared down at the war hawk for a long minute before turning away. Danzo narrowed his eyes. He could spot a threat miles off, but he felt he needed to ask this just to be sure. He never been threatened by the Sannin. Now he had two Sannins against him. Tsunade had sent him a message and it had been loud and clear. The woman wasn't going to simply sit back and watch things boil over whilst standing by the side. She was going to do something. How he missed the days he used to spar with the Sandaime Hokage. Are you threatening me, Jiraiya? Threaten? Jiraiya said. No. I'm letting you know that you will pay, even if it means I have to burn down this entire facility to do it. I will make you pay. It's not a matter of if, but when. The Sannin strolled away in an imposing manner after saying those words. He left Danzo with no doubt that he was going to take action over his treacherous actions. He had done everything to make sure that Naruto rebuilds his life and tries something for Konoha, but this bastard had ruined everything. Letting him go without ripping him would be just careless and not acting in the best interest of the village and Naruto. More importantly though, Naruto's interests. Danzo stared at Jiraiya's back until he disappeared, digesting what the Sannin had just said. There was no way he could count the threat as nothing. Unlike other people, Jiraiya wasn't just a small boy he could handle easily or manipulate. The man was a Sannin who has demonstrated his power repeatedly. If anything, Danzo would have avoided a fight with the Sannin. Jiraiya would not only be the problem, Tsunade and Kakashi would surely get in the act. Even so, Danzo didn't think that this was something he could not handle. He could handle this situation without any trouble. He would just need to be careful to avoid falling needlessly. Annoyed, Danzo started. Arrange for an increase in security around the parameter. Something is going to happen soon. Hi, Danzo-sama. Danzo was left alone trying to figure what the Sannins were going to do. What would they do to him? He didn't think they would go as far as to try to kill him. Well, the look on Jiraiya's face could argue with that. Nevertheless, he did think it was just the man allowing his emotions getting the better of him. He wasn't going to provoke anything further, but just watch things proceed smoothly. The stage was set and he had played his cards. It was time for Tsunade to make her move. He did have Naruto exactly where he wanted him, isolated from the rest of the village. A few minutes later, you took your time to get back, you damn pervert. Tsunade all but shouted at Jiraiya the moment the Sannin appeared in her office. She didn't care about the rare stern look on his face. She was going to put one in a couple of moments once she has gotten over her emotions over the fact that he was finally back. I was in a dangerous situation, Jiraiya said, but I returned as soon as I could. I have already spoken to Danzo. I'm sure he will be alert for any strange movements. It doesn't matter regardless. A firm action must be taken against him. Naruto was his precious godson and he wasn't going to allow anyone to ruin his future, especially not a corrupt bastard like Danzo. You're more pressing on taking action, Tsunade said. Not that it was surprising since she was also pressed on doing something against Danzo. But this was Jiraiya and he should know how to handle things smoothly. If it was something else, he wouldn't have started by seeing the War Hawk, but he would have come to her to discuss things before going to Danzo. Why did you even say to him? I told him that he was going to pay, Jiraiya said in a firm tone. Danzo made a grave mistake in doing what he just did. Naruto isn't the same as he was back then. I'm not saying that there is something dark about him, but he doesn't think as kindly as he used to in his younger days. He is no longer an innocent little boy. The changes in him mean that he isn't going to try to talk his oppositions into surrendering. I'm also afraid of Naruto's response to all these. I know he no longer has any plans on becoming Hokage. Although he never said anything to me, I could tell because whenever I brought it up, he never showed any interest in it. He was most focused on the peace talk. Perhaps I should have noticed it, but I indulged it because finally, I wanted to talk to someone who was interested in peace. The Sannin shook his head after saying those words. Well, we just have to do damage control and a decision has already been made on how to deal with Danzo, Tsunade said firmly. The following day, early morning. Training ground 44. The surrounding trees were cut down, leaving a clear field. If anything, it appeared as if someone had just been chopping down the trees to clear the way for some building. He could feel wind chakra all over the place to be able to tell that this destruction wasn't natural. He had seen something like this before when Naruto was practicing wind control and wind jutsus. The element was his strongest and he was trying to learn other elements. Wind stood out the most though. He still had a long way to go with it, but he could do some things that not many could do with it. Jiraiya looked at the center of the destruction. There was Naruto, sitting in a meditative position, right hand held out with a mini Rasenshuriken spinning powerfully. His eyes were closed and there were bruises around his frame. Still trying to maximize the use of that jutsu? Jiraiya asked calmly. Yes, but the struggle doesn't seem like it will end soon. I cannot control it each time I increase the power within it. I have to find more power when not using senjutsu to be able to control and be able to hurl it. In this way, it will damage my hand if use it in its current form. It also consumes too much chakra. I can create thousands of Kage Bunshins each with Rasengans, but I can only do 2 Rasenshurikens and still hope to continue fighting. A third one will leave me with only enough energy to run away. A fourth would likely leave me emaciated only because I'm a Jinchuriki. If not, it would kill me. Jiraiya nodded. Well, you're trying to create a powerful AS-rated jutsu. If you perfect it, I don't see any defense jutsu capable of completely blocking it. It would simply rip through all forms of defense. Perhaps metal would be its weakness, but anything that can shatter or be moved, it would penetrate. The Sannin said. Why do you want to be able to use it repeatedly? I'm going to fight many battles in the future, fight powerful opponents. I need to be strong, Naruto said. About that, Jiraiya started in a serious tone. The seriousness of his tone caused Naruto to cancel his jutsu and face the Toad Sage. We need to talk about a threat that has arisen within the elemental nations. Naruto stared at the Sannin for a long minute. There was always something in this world, wasn't it? Corrupt and inhuman pieces of flesh like Orochimaru walked within this world, destabilizing peaceful lands with their madness. For Jiraiya to speak in such seriousness, this meant that the threat was very big. You must have heard me talking about the Akatsuki in my conversations with my people. I never told you anything about it and you never bothered to ask about it. Naruto shrugged. My trust in you compels me to be silent on some matters and wait on you to come to me. I'm not going to hear something or suspect that you are hiding something from me then charge straight to demand answers. Jiraiya smiled briefly at that before getting onto his message. They are a group of S-ranked rogue shinobi headed by a mysterious leader. 2 former Leaf shinobi have connections with the organization. Orochimaru is a former member and Itachi is a current member. I don't know how many members they have, but they were doing mercenary missions in the past. Anything you paid, they could do. Either destroying a small village or assassination, they did everything. Iwagakure is rumored to have used their services. My intel suggests that they may perhaps be pushing a bigger agenda. I don't know for sure, but it appears that they are now going after Jinchurikis. I don't know for what reason, but I doubt it is anything good. This means that your very life is in danger. I have already spoken about it with Tsunade and she agrees that for your safety, you must never be alone when outside the village. S-rank shinobi are basically cage level. With senjutsu you should be able to handle yourself against one, but there is a lot we don't know about their strength. Naruto silently absorbed what he was being told by the Sannin with a frown on his lips. It was rather sad that something like this was happening. There was the danger that this could destabilize the current flow of things within the elemental nations. Things were calm, but anything can brew at any moment in this world of shinobi. If the Akatsuki is truly after Jinchurikis, it simply meant they were after the power. What could they possibly wish to do with that power? There are 9-tailed beasts and I host the strongest. Do you know other Jinchurikis? Aside from Gaara, I don't know any other. Naruto said. Kumo has 2, so does Iwa. Kiri used to have 1 but he has since disappeared. Jiraiya said. This complicates things given that there is still the issue of Danzo that needs to be dealt with. Naruto nodded. Outside the village is no longer safe and in here there is a situation that can drive someone mental. The blonde Uzumaki sighed tiredly. This is going to put a strain on my mind. He said. I know. Jiraiya said sadly. Are you sure you want to be involved? It is going to be messy. Naruto nodded. There is no way of avoiding it. Besides, I must grow. It's not going to be pleasant as I don't handle blood very well, but it has to be done. Jiraiya nodded. How about we meet for a bottle of sake later on? You can help me pick on women as we drink. I haven't had any good materials recently. The Toad Sage said with a grin. Naruto smiled. Sure. Why not? It was going to be the last fun he has with this Jiraiya. He may as well depart with a bang. The nights in the dark pits where shinobi come to drown their sorrows and lick their wounds were always different. Even though many came because of problems, after a couple of drinks in the bar, laughter would fill the loud chambers crowded with men and women drinking their brains into a frenzy of dizziness. There would be no one crying, everyone was always in a joyous mood. Even those being rejected in their advances to women were also not showing in signs of depression. In this kind of nights, even women tried and sometimes were successful in their hunt for men. As Jiraiya would say, there were men-eaters clothed as women. The Toad Sage was of course always at home in such a place. After a couple of drinks, and sometimes not even after drinking, he would be sprouting nonsense, but mostly boasting about his greatness as the legendary Toad Sage. That was Jiraiya, but remarkably, Naruto has never seen anyone hitting on the Sannin. He was the one who made the moves. It isn't to say he wasn't loved. Of course, mostly he had to spend money, but for the Sannin, it was money well spent. If he had a good time and lecherous memories to use for his next book, Jiraiya would not complain. Naruto wasn't a particular fan of the nightclubs and drinking with whores, but every now and then, Jiraiya had pulled him into this kind place. Once you had a couple of drinks, you would loosen up a bit and have a bit of fun. Naruto would not honestly say that there hadn't been moments he found himself having fun with Jiraiya and a couple of ladies close by. He, however, could not, in good conscience, drag a drunken girl to his den. Jiraiya has always frowned upon that, but Naruto would not take much from a man who makes his riches by writing trash for perverts. The blonde Uzumaki was sitting in a dark corner, with required protection done by the Toad Sage to ensure that no one eavesdrop on their conversation. Spies tended to hang about this place. Even Jiraiya sometimes came to this kind of place to gather intelligence. Some who could not hold their liquor sometimes let loose of secrets to the ladies they were trying to bed. Yes, secrets like those secret and dangerous missions they just complimented. Of course, sometimes it was all nonsense. Shinobi lied all day long to get what they wanted. The Uzumaki had a small cup in front of him, but his eyes were all over the chamber of fun. There were shinobi of the Hidden Leaf and a couple from other villages. He could see some he knew from the Leaf and many more he has never met in his life. If there were Anbu within, you could never tell. They blended in smoothly. Are you not going to drink? Jiraiya asked Naruto. The night was still young, but it would be no fun if Naruto didn't want to partake in it. They were here to drink and just forget about the misery of their lives and what they were about to do. They may as well leave this place if they were going to just stare at the sake. Naruto was his priority this night, so, Jiraiya was willing to take his bottle with him and go to the hot springs with the blonde if it would be enough to get them to talk. He needed to know where exactly the blonde stood with the villagers and how exactly he felt about Danzo. Aside from that, he needed to do damage control if there was a need for it. The Jinchuriki turned towards the Sannin before staring down at the cup full of sake from the land of toads. The toad chief was willing to give it to him but never to Jiraiya. But of course, the Sannin would always get it from him. Naruto took the cup and then sipped. The sip turned into a gulp and everything within the cup slid through his throat. He didn't slam the cup at the table like those sitting by the counter, he gently placed it down. Jiraiya took the honors of pouring in some more. I was still thinking about things. Naruto said in a quiet tone. We have come a long way, haven't we, sensei? When you appeared before me after Kakashi abandoned me to a man whose qualification was training students not yet in the academy, I never thought that we would come to a place like this. Jiraiya smiled. Well, it has been a journey. We have filled it with beautiful memories and in a short time. Naruto nodded. You have influenced a lot about me and my change. Perhaps the only reason I wanted to become Hokage was not to protect the village but to be recognized as the villagers recognized the Yondaime Hokage. My existence had been denied, as if I was not alive, but if I became great and get to be Hokage, they would never deny my existence. Well, that is the past now. Things change and I'm not too obsessed with it. What is life without growing and changing into something else? It should be acceptable as long as you have not thrown away what is morally acceptable. I have always strived to do what is good. Perhaps I was driven by the need for people to see the good in me. It wasn't an act, but through experience, my heart has hardened. He was saying that, yet he felt heavy and burdened by the thought of causing pain the people he loved. He was going to do that and would not cry over it. Even if he does, it would not make him stop. He had a mission to fulfill and he would not stop. He would not drop dead until this mission was complete. At least at the end of his years of living, he would have done something, even if some people would hate him. Experiences do that to you. Jiraiya said, trying to display all the experiences he has went through in his life. But you are right, whatever we do, we must not forget who we are. Once we lose our sense of self, we change everything, life turns around and the people around us start to look at us differently. In most cases, we end up hurting them. I know from experience. When Orochimaru left, we were hurt, Sensei was hurt. Perhaps he had always been evil, but he was a friend, that counted for something. Naruto eyed the Sannin for a couple of seconds, thinking. He was going to wound many of his friends but that was just a pain he had to go through. Perhaps things would not be that bad if he does things in a certain way. For sure, there will be bloodshed, but at the end, he will make something out of this world. In a shift from the subject being discussed, the blonde asked Jiraiya what he wanted to talk to him about. Naruto was sure that the Sannin was going to try to convince him to still continue believing in the villagers even though they turn on him quickly. They had changed, and they would change again. He just needed to keep hoping and not lose hope. Losing hope would mean the end of everything. Even after everything, Jiraiya was a hidden leaf shinobi. He has lived his entire life trying to have fun but above all to protect the leaf. Maybe it was something that had to do with the will of fire the Sandaime Hokage always talked about. The only thing that would make Jiraiya turn his back on Konoha would be if the hidden leaf stabs him on the back and then nail him on a cross before the burning. As things stand, the man was probably most upset with Danzo for playing with their emotions. He may be right but one could not absolve them from their own actions. I know this isn't a situation we'd hoped for when we returned to the village. I really expected things to be better. If I'd known that Danzo would act in such a manner, I would have done everything in my power to stop him, even if that meant stepping on his throat. The Toad Sage was firm in saying those words. But you can't lose hope, Naruto. You need to continue fighting on to show these people that you are a hero of the leaf. This kind of talk, if Jiraiya was going to be preaching it to him all days of his life, he would be troubled greatly. To Naruto, as things stand, it was all just a tiresome talk that would not change anything. He had come here knowing that the man would bring it up. It was nevertheless best that he entertains it anyway. When he leaves, the Toad Sage would not blame himself for not trying to talk him into staying. Jiraiya-sensei. Naruto started in a very calm yet slow tone. His eyes didn't reflect anything, just expressionless. Had Jiraiya's eyes not been trained, he would not have seen it with the darkness that surrounded him. Do you really think that I should waste more of my time trying to sulk up to the villagers? They do no care for me and have never cared. Don't you think it is time we said, we tried, it just never worked out? Ever since I started to understand that the villagers felt contempt for me, I had strived to be good for them and show them my heart had nothing but kindness. What I had after all these years? Sure, I haven't done anything noteworthy, but how long has it been? 17 years. I don't want to walk in the same path as you, sensei. I loved Sakura, but I gave it up because it amounted to nothing. My sanity matters above all. Why do something that is likely to drive you insane? Who will be there to pick up the pieces when I have lost my sanity? Jiraiya frowned upon hearing this from Naruto. Tsunade had already told him that the blonde had said he didn't care about trying to be good to the villagers or what they thought of him, but he had been thinking he could try to change that. Naruto wasn't confused. He didn't sound like a confused person. He sounded like a person who has had much time to think about something before making a decision he saw as rational. Yet, Jiraiya could not accept it. What would be the reason for staying in Konoha? You didn't care for its villagers. It wasn't the buildings that made the leaf but its people. Buildings could always be rebuilt, but people could not. Without the people, this land would turn into a ruin. Don't make any hasty decisions, Naruto. Konoha is your home, has always been. You will find it intolerable to live here if you cannot live with the villagers. The Sannin paused for a moment before testing the waters. Unless you are planning on leaving Konoha. I doubt Tsunade would allow that to happen. Naruto said in a sad tone. I host the Kyuubi. I have gotten the feeling that some leaders feel that the Biju is a property of Konoha. Kurama snorted within his cell upon hearing those words. Humans, Bijus would always be a source of power, their little weapons. Although Hashirama didn't bring him into this village to be a weapon, he had tried to dictate things for him. Kurama would never forget the man had told him that he had been too dangerous to be left alone, and Mito had proceeded to seal him within herself. It was a little different with Naruto though, he was still Uzumaki. The hosts he has had have been all Uzumaki and each came with a different personality. Kushina came to him saying this was a situation that neither wanted but they just had to go with it. Naruto talked to him. The blonde used his power and it has saved his life on different occasions. Even so, Kurama would not say that the blonde was like all the other humans. He was different, but of course, the Biju wasn't going to admit that to the blonde. Tsunade cares about you, Naruto. The Toad Sage said confidently. Naruto didn't deny that. He knew firsthand that Tsunade cared for him. Despite my thoughts, Konoha will always be my home. I don't think I can never take another village as my home. This will always be home. My thoughts might not be happy at the moment, but this will always be home, where I have friends and people who like me. Upon hearing that, Jiraiya smiled. He could now move on to the next subject before getting into the fun. I'm glad to hear that. The Sannin said. What did Danzo want exactly, Naruto? There are some blanks in what Inoichi discovered and you didn't tell both Ibiki and Tsunade about it. Both never asked. Naruto said with indifference. Danzo wanted to manipulate me using a Sharingan he has implanted in his right eye socket. I imagine it isn't a normal Sharingan if he felt that he could control me with it. The Kyuubi warned me. Jiraiya stared for a long minute with his thoughts going back to a couple of years ago. The only Sharingan he knew could control someone without anyone knowing was Shisui's eyes. I doubt it is, but Shisui Uchiha had a Mangekyo Sharingan that was said to be able to put someone under a genjutsu so powerful that it could manipulate you without you even realizing it. I don't know if that is the eye, but as far as I remember, when Shisui was murdered, Itachi was suspected to have been the one to kill him. Perhaps it had been Danzo who did it for the Sharingan. For someone who craves power, I don't find it difficult that he would have gone that far. Why didn't you tell Tsunade about it though? If you had, she could have arrested him on the spot and have the eye gouged out before he could do anything. It would have been easy to handle him then. If he planned something like this, he must have known that should he fail, something like that would happen. Imagine if I had told Tsunade that Danzo had a Sharingan and when she strips him, there is nothing under those bandages. I did not wish to take that risk. That may not be his reason for not saying anything. Naruto would deny that deep within him there had been a thought of doing things by himself. Should he have told Tsunade that piece of information, the woman would have dealt with Danzo right there and then. This situation wouldn't have happened. Then again, if it hadn't happened, leaving would be much harder. Jiraiya nodded. He could understand it. I will discuss it with Suon, but this just means that he has more secrets that he is hiding under those bandages. Who knows, with all these, he might not even be a cripple. The Sannin shook his head at that thought. He was just being ridiculous. Well, more reasons to handle him. Ideally, we want to put him on a guillotine, but we know that he isn't going to allow that to happen. This is why it might get tricky. There will be traps and he will probably try to take us down in the process. My training should be enough to handle what Danzo has to throw. No doubt about that. You really did kill yourself in your training. We should spar soon, the Sannin said. It will be bloody, but we should end up sorting the issue in secret. Tsunade has yet to even talk to the people she wants on the job. But she is reviewing profiles. If she talks to them, Danzo will likely catch wind of it and disappear. That would be unfortunate, Naruto said. But you can just hunt him down. They were talking about potentially killing people here, and yet Naruto hasn't shown any discomfort about the thought. It was as if he was prepared to do the killing. Jiraiya could simply not wrap his head around the issue. Before they came back to this village, when they spoke of killing, Naruto would always reveal some emotions, but now there was nothing in his eyes, nothing in his face. It was as if he was indifferent to the whole thing. A worrying matter, but Jiraiya still shoved it at the back of his head just so he can enjoy the night. The Sannin stood up. I'm going to get more drinks and some company, the Sannin said with a grin. Naruto shook his head, raising an index finger. You always bring back old woman, sensei. I want girls my age, or at least late teens or early 20s. The blonde also stood up. I will get my own company. I have already found someone who pleases me anyway. You brat. When you were silent, you were busy zooming around. Jiraiya accused the blonde. Before I go, can I get a couple to help smooth out the conversation? I forgot my wallet. May have lost it earlier when I had to run away from a murderous mob. I'm not going to give you money. You've already drank my sake, Naruto said with a shake of his head. A man must speak for himself. But then again, you seem to like it more when you peek or pay, isn't it, sensei? Is it because of your unrequited love to Tsunade? Like your love for Sakura-chan? Jiraiya said. Naruto smiled before raising both his hands. Fair enough, he said to the Sannin before getting up. Good luck, he said before walking away from the Sannin. The following morning, Ikaraku ramen stand. Ayame brought Naruto his 5th bowl of ramen, but she didn't give it to him. She stared at him for a long minute before asking. This is the first time you've had more than one bowl since you returned from your training trip, she said to the blonde. Something wrong. As soon as those words left her mouth, Ayame felt stupid. How could she ask if there was something wrong or not? Didn't she know what was happening within the streets of the Hidden Leaf? Even some villagers who sat here even talked about it, and yet, she was asking if everything was alright. She shook her head. Yesterday, he had been here, but he only had one bowl and he had savored it. Before the brown-haired young woman could correct herself, Naruto responded. No, there is nothing wrong, he said with a smile. Jiraiya was being a bad influence on me last night. We drank a little too much. I woke up early because of hunger. There is no such thing as a little too much, Ayame said. If you were drinking, I'm surprised you're up so early and don't look as if you were drunk last night. Well, assuming you got drunk. I'm a shinobi, Naruto said calmly, but he did not explain it to Ayame. He simply held out his right hand for his ramen. Ayame shook her head before handing the blonde his bowl. If you need anything else, just call me. She twisted away, heading back towards the kitchen. If I didn't know any better, I'd think you come here for the view, Jiraiya suddenly said to Naruto before settling down on the stool next to the blonde. Ramen, so early, Naruto shrugged. If it is open, then it means it is right to eat it. Jiraiya shook his head in response. You got lucky last night. Jiraiya frowned as he shook his head. No, he said. She fell asleep the moment we arrived at her home. Disappointed, I went to the hot springs but it was empty. I missed your clones at that moment. Naruto turned to the Sannin with a sharp look on his face. The man had no shame in saying that, did he? But should he be surprised? The man proudly claimed to be a super pervert. Naturally, he would not be ashamed of his actions and what he says. Of course, this caused some righteous woman to smack the Sannin, but he didn't seem to care about anything. What do you want so early in the morning, sensei? I'm just passing by, he said. But I thought I'd tell you that I'm going to give Tsunade information I received regarding Sasuke's whereabouts. As you know, I have been trying to track him down. It hasn't been easy since he is with Orochimaru, but I have finally managed to get something about him. I see. When Naruto showed no interest in asking more about Sasuke and what was going to happen, the Sannin shook his head. You know you will have to deal with this issue sooner or later. For future generations, we might need the Uchiha. I don't care much personally, but it would be sad to see the Uchiha blood die with Sasuke. It isn't that I don't want to deal with it. Naruto said with a shake of his head. I cannot deny that I did consider Sasuke to be a friend, perhaps even the brother I never had. Things have changed now, but I cannot really say I hate him. I just don't want to be tangled up in this mess. I already have enough in my plate to deal with. I understand that, Jiraiya said, but refusing to talk about it isn't going to take it away. Naruto eyed the Sannin, who was walking away, from the corner of his eyes before staring back at his ramen. His feelings towards the Uchiha were mixed, but he wasn't about to beg the Uchiha to return to the leaf, not when he was going to abandon it as well. He was going to be many things, but a hypocrite. No. If Sasuke felt that going after revenge was good for him, then he wasn't going to try talking the Uchiha out of it, not when he was going to walk a path that many would disagree on. Of course, such thoughts he could not share with Jiraiya, at least not now. Hokage's office. You're in early, Tsunade said to the Toad Sage. She had planned for talks with the Sannin, but she'd heard that he was out drinking with Naruto last night. The report had even included horse-worming beside the two shinobi. I don't appreciate you influencing Naruto to do any of those things, Jiraiya. Suan said in a very stern tone. She hadn't been happy knowing that the Toad Sage had dragged her dear Naruto into a brothel. He was still young and didn't need to experience those things at this stage of his life. He could end up like this pervert in front of her. Given that he had developed a sexy jutsu before he even knew the body of a woman, she wondered how his jutsu would be now. It was no doubt going to be something even more devilishly perverted. Now, princess, Jiraiya said, waving his hands in surrendering. The brat was down and I needed him to feel alive. I know he does become alive after a couple of drinks and some talk. Oh, so now you want him to be an alcoholic? Of course not, Jiraiya more or less shouted. I don't think I can influence Naruto in such a way. Whilst my peace ideals have gotten to him, he still remains independent and does what he likes. He hasn't even drunk anything when I'm not by his side, even though he can hold his alcohol just fine, the Sannin grumbled at the last part. Tsunade shook her head. Leave you to be a role model and you corrupt a good kid, she said disappointedly. Anyway, settle down so that we can talk. Jiraiya took his usual seat by the window frame. It was only then that Tsunade blinked, realizing that the Sannin had actually walked into the office through the door. When did that last happen? Was something wrong with him? The reason I took Naruto out was because I wanted to find out more about what was inside his head. Yesterday, he was training, learning a jutsu. On the last 6 months of our training trip, he took an interest in learning jutsus that were only good for destruction. I don't think he managed to get any, but he was learning. He even showed interest in learning more about using all major elements. He has trained his clones, and was developing a jutsu that could make him fight powerful opponents without even stepping into the battlefield. I won't be surprised if in the next months or year he manages to create a super clone that can fight even Jonin level shinobi whilst he stands on the side, watching or perhaps not even there. He has been trying to put his presence in different places. From what I observed from him, he looks to be preparing weapons of destruction for war. Very soon, if he keeps his training up, he will surpass us. He has the potential, and the Cage Bunshin's Dawn make it easy for him. For a second, Tsunade looked worried. What are you trying to say, Jiraiya? I've never went all out sparring with him, but I will try to get him to fight me so that I can see his full strength. The Sannin paused before speaking in a stern tone. We mustn't include Naruto in the mission to handle Danzo. With his mind set now, getting involved in a bloody battle that might result in him killing people will corrupt him. That is a chance we cannot take, Tsunade. Are you sure about this, Jiraiya? The Sannin nodded and he knew what this implied, but it could not be helped. His conversation with Naruto only affirmed his thoughts. When he told Suon that the blonde Uzumaki had changed, he had meant it. Perhaps he'd thought the seriousness he'd used when informing Tsunade about the changes had disappeared once Naruto settled back home. Perhaps he'd been thinking that the blonde would return to his old self, but there was no change, and this little thing with Danzo has only made things worse. It was a massive problem that had to be solved. These experiences that Naruto has to live through were not filling him with positive thoughts about people. It was all just negative things and a couple of positives. Yet, one could not hide that these experiences had their damage within the blonde. Jiraiya had seen it all and now it scared him. Yes, I warned you when we returned that Naruto was no longer the innocent child you once knew. The Sannin said. Of course, he will likely catch wind of it. We try to handle it with him in the village. We need to get him to leave the village before handling it. But it would have to be an important mission. Naruto could not be allowed take part in the mission, not unless he was done analyzing the blonde's mental state. It would be difficult because the blonde knew how to keep things hidden. Those eyes of his could shift from the warmth they displayed into a blue sea of emptiness. I have already told him about Sasuke and I know it should get his mind thinking. The mission is important enough for him to leave the village. Once he is out, we can begin. The Sannin stated. I cannot exactly say that the Akatsuki won't attack. But to balance things, you must send a squad of Anbu to tail them. Should anything happen, they can always intervene, and Naruto will be with his team. He also has the Toads to back him up should there be a problem. You've thought of this through, Tsunade said. Well, I can't disagree with that, but Kakashi cannot leave the village. He will be essential for the mission. Yamato will have to do, but we will need a fourth head. Jiraiya shook his head. Naruto is not stupid, Haim. He will suspect something is up if Kakashi remains behind on a mission that could see Sasuke return to the Leaf. The only reason Yamato was placed in Team 7 was because their team leader had been busy. He isn't now, and this includes Sasuke. We cannot give Danzo too much respect and say we can't deal with him without our strongest shinobi present. I will be there, so will you. I can handle Danzo without a problem, and Anbu can handle his handful of Foundation agents. It isn't an army that we must deal with. The Toad said, paused before sighing. We cannot underestimate him nonetheless. Naruto even told me something that got me worried, but not that worried enough I'd have doubts about our success. We will crush him. Tsunade was silent for a while, trying to weigh the merits of Jiraiya's arguments. She had to think things as well. If she could understand what the pervert was saying and if she could agree to it, then she would allow for things to go the way he wants. After a few moments, the Slug Princess finally spoke. Fine. When should he depart? Lunchtime. If they keep running, they can camp by the Fire Country border by night and enter the Sound early morning. Training Ground 44. You will have to remove headband to use your Sharingan in both your hands, Kakashi-sensei. This isn't like just after I left the academy. Naruto said to Kakashi. The Jonin had offered to spar with him, perhaps just to test his strength. Aside from the Jonin, Captain Yamato was sitting on the sidelines, observing. Jiraiya-sama says you have improved a lot but would not tell me if you could give me a run, Kakashi said, lifting his headband. He wasn't about to underestimate the blonde Uzumaki. That stage in his life had passed. Besides, this Naruto wasn't the brat of a couple of years ago. Naruto smiled seeing the Jonin showing his Sharingan. Well, at least he was going to be serious. His last battle against the Sharingan hadn't been all too pleasant. He had lost it even when the Kyuubi offered its power. The situation was different now. These days he was a lot more experienced with the fighting stage and he thought more before he acted. He didn't just jump into the battleground without determining the situation and how dangerous it was. The self-proclaimed pervert doesn't know how much I have improved, but he knows a couple of things. Naruto stated. He focused more on the imparting of skills and knowledge. I gained battle experiences by doing some missions along the way. He was a little brutal about it at times, performing the great escape and leaving me surrounded by a group of shinobi who had every intention to do me harm. Of course, I'd pay it back by hurling him into a women's only hot spring. Kakashi blinked. He thought about the scenario Naruto just painted. For some reason, he felt sorry for the Toad Sage. There was no doubt that he would end up being beaten to a pulp. Well, he enjoyed the fruits of those beatings in the form of his precious books. Unconsciously, the Jonin's hand shifted towards where his book was safely placed. The famed Jonin's instincts kicked in within seconds when they sensed Naruto close by. The blonde had used his little distraction by lunging towards him in a quick and silent burst of speed. It took a blink of an eye for the blonde to appear in front of him, slightly above the ground, body bent forward slightly with his right hand moving from the right, charging horizontally just above his left shoulder. The Jonin's natural eye couldn't see anything gripped by Naruto's hand, but it did appear to be gripping something. The Sharingan, however, could see something invisible to the eye, formed like a sword charging towards his neck. He was a little alarmed that such an attack was coming straight at him. Instinctively, and assisted by the Sharingan's capabilities, the Jonin managed to jump back in a quick burst whilst his body was bending backwards just for extra security. As he flew backwards, the invisible wind blade whizzed just inches away from his forehead. There was no time to drop a sweat as Kakashi landed. He quickly lunged towards Naruto before twisting clockwise, returning with a high kick aimed at Naruto's face. Naruto was in a position to see the kick coming all the way towards him. He folded his hands across his face and bent his knees slightly for extra support. Kakashi's kick crashed into his defense, forcing him to slide backwards under its massive weight. After sliding for a couple of feet, Naruto looked at his hands before looking back at Kakashi with a smile. Well, you really do pack a weight in your kick. You tried to kill me. Kakashi more or less shouted, pointing an index finger towards Naruto. Without the Sharingan, the only way I could have avoided that was through instincts. Naruto shrugged, raising an index finger. Your lessons, sensei. On your first day, you clearly said, come at me with the intention to kill. I figured there would be no justice if I didn't come at you with everything. The blonde paused for a moment, tilting his head slightly. Have you perhaps been spending the past years reading those books you ended up neglecting your training? Kakashi stared. I see you're serious, he said in a serious tone. If I'm not careful, I may end up in the hospital today. The Jonin said, doing hand seals. Sweden no jutsu. The Jonin expelled a large quantity of water from his mouth. The water formed a torrent that rushed towards the blonde Uzumaki. Seeing the incoming attack, Naruto had seconds to decide on which jutsu to use to counter. With regards to other elements, he had very limited options because although learning, he was still not excellent like the likes of Jiraiya and the man fighting him. He could do with wind though. As the jutsu neared him, Naruto took a single step forward, enlarging his wind blade. He suddenly lunged towards the jutsu whilst swinging his blade in a downward slash. He was slightly above the ground as he did. The invisible sword sliced through the water jutsu, separating it. The water was diverted to both sides of the blonde Uzumaki. Before Naruto could even celebrate his successful test, Kakashi suddenly appeared below him. The Jonin slammed his right foot on Naruto's chest. When the kick connected, Naruto felt as if his lungs stopped pumping air for a second. The force of the kick sent him flying upwards. Kakashi blurred above him, right foot slamming down towards his head. Naruto reacted swiftly by folding his hands just above his head to create a strong defense. The back of the Jonin's foot slammed onto his defense. It failed to break through but still sent him crashing down the ground, with the Jonin still attached to him. Despite being pushed, Naruto still managed to land down in a slightly good position, considering the position, on his knees with the Jonin still right above him. You've got nice reflexes. Kakashi commented idly. How do you deal with this now? The Jonin's right hand dropped an exploding tag, right in Naruto's face. Naruto's face revealed a look of surprise when the Jonin did something so merciless. Before the tag even went off, Kakashi made his distance and the tag went off, exploding into blue flames, surrounding the Uzumaki. From his safe distance, Kakashi watched as Naruto burst out of the flames with his hands folded around his upper body for protection. When he landed the ground with slight burns on his clothes, Naruto turned his eyes straight at the smiling Jonin. Was that payback? Who knows? Kakashi said with a shrug. I think it wasn't as punishment, Naruto said, taking out a familiar orange book. I'm shredding this. Kakashi widened his eyes when the book in Naruto's hand was shredded into pieces. His hands moved speedily to his pockets to feel if it was his book. The moment alone was enough to close the distance between them. The blonde appeared inches away from the Jonin before grabbing him by the face. He used brute strength to lift the Jonin into the air before mercilessly slamming him into the ground. When the blonde attempted to slam his foot on Kakashi's chest, the Jonin flipped to the side, avoiding Naruto's foot. Kakashi's right foot swept through the ground, hitting Naruto head-on. There was enough power to sweep Naruto off the ground. The Uzumaki started falling backwards and slammed into the ground with his back. When he slammed down, he sensed movement beneath him and tried to jump up by using both his hands to force the movement. Before he could even go further, Kakashi's hands burst from the ground, grabbing the blonde's shoulders before slamming him down. Naruto's head got buried into the ground. Kakashi burst out from the ground on the side. The Jonin took the air just above Naruto. But as he did, Naruto could see him. The blonde clasped both his hands together. Futon. Wind bullet. Naruto released a large bullet of wind, straight towards the Jonin. Since he was in the air, Kakashi knew he could not dodge it, and with the speed it was coming in, wouldn't have enough time to do hand seals to perform any jutsu to block it. The wind jutsu slammed into Kakashi's chest, but the Jonin turned into a cloud of smoke when it connected. Naruto slowly got up from the ground. When he straightened himself, he caught Kakashi dashing towards him in great speed. When the Jonin stopped close as he tried to attack, Naruto transformed into a red-headed, petite, and with a large bust young woman. The Jonin halted at the unexpected events. Wasn't she like the girl Yu-chan from Ika Ika Para? You damned pervert. Naruto cut off the Jonin's thoughts with a heavy and brutal punch on Jonin's forehead. The punch didn't connect with speed, it just had the power to shake the Jonin's entire body, making him feel slightly disoriented. With the Jonin still feeling those effects, Naruto slammed another right punch on Kakashi's guts. When it connected, the Jonin bent forward a little as pain shot through his body before he coughed up a mouthful of saliva. Naruto followed up by twisting clockwise, his right foot going into the air. It slammed straight on Kakashi's face, sending the Jonin flying backwards. Kakashi slammed into a tree before cursing slightly as pain erupted from his back. He cursed once more, seeing Naruto lunge towards him with his invisible sword. The Uzumaki swung his sword with speed and power. The sword cleaved through the air before cutting Kakashi through the waist. When he felt nothing, Naruto halted. Genjutsu. The moment he cancelled the jutsu, Naruto heard birds chirping. He knew he didn't have the time to twist around to face the Jonin. Kakashi suddenly halted his movements, sensing something from Yamato. He dispersed his jutsu. An Anbu dropped into the battlefield. Hokage-sama is calling. The Jonin asked quietly. The Anbu nodded before disappearing from existence. I guess I got saved by the bell, Naruto said after releasing a long sigh of relief. I didn't think that kind of jutsu would work though. It has worked on many shinobi, but I thought you'd be familiar with it enough to keep your guard. Jiraiya-sama is familiar with it, yet he still falls for it every day, Kakashi defended himself. Besides, I didn't think you'd pull it off. I guess I shouldn't be surprised after that stunt you pulled earlier. He meant the shredding on his book. Naruto shrugged. I wanted to amuse myself. You've always been fond of those books. People who read those books are very protective of them and always keep them wherever they are. I noticed it with the Sandaime Hokage. He was a fan, but he always kept his book hidden and never let anyone touch it if caught reading it. I don't know, it has always seemed like some sort of a holy grail. The blonde waved his hands. A nice touch, wouldn't you say? It's cruel, Kakashi said, massaging his book, as if to give it some comfort. You have really improved your techniques and movements. You are also showing the use to strategy in battle, although they are cheap tricks, they do get the job done. How many shinobi has he seen shinobi falling for the jutsu repeatedly? It was especially bad when the blonde used the harem version. Raw power doesn't always win you a fight. Besides that, not every opponent you fight will be weaker than you. To be able to fight opponents stronger than you need to have the mind to be able to think ahead of them and think strategically. Naruto said. What does the Godime want from us? Kakashi shook his head. he really didn't know. He thought perhaps it had something to do with things of Danzo, otherwise, why would Tsunade summon them like this? Although the Anbu had simply disappeared after delivering the message, it could not be said that the woman wasn't serious about needing them in her office. Minutes later, Hokage Tower, Tsunade's office. Tsunade raised an eyebrow seeing the bruises around Kakashi and Naruto's bodies. She shook her head thinking that the two had been sparring. Well, she just hoped that they would be able to recover their energy soon because they had to set out in a couple of hours. Naruto also raised an eyebrow seeing Sakura and Neji already present within the office. He realized quickly that they were being brought here for a mission. If it was something else, Tsunade wouldn't have called them here like this. He sighed. He wasn't expecting to be out on a mission so soon after Jiraiya said that it would be dangerous for him to leave the village with the Akatsuki possibly looking for him. But for the moment, he was still a Konoha shinobi. He had to move when Tsunade said so. If she wanted him on a mission, he simply could not just say no. I brought you here because I have an important mission for Team 7, Tsunade said. Sakura looked her remaining teammate and then the sensei before looking at Neji. The Hyuga looked stoic, showed no emotion when Tsunade spoke. She had nothing against the Hyuga but he wasn't a member of Team 7. If it is Team 7, shouldn't Sai be here as well? She asked. Tsunade shook her head. Sai is no longer a member of Team 7. At Beast, Team 7 will remain with just 3 members until Sasuke is convinced to return to the Leaf. She said those last words for Sakura's mindset. Neji will be joining the team because the Byakugan will be useful during the mission. What kind of a mission is it? Kakashi asked. Tsunade took out a scroll and handed it to the former Anbu captain. Jiraiya brought information about Sasuke's latest location. I don't know if he is still within the place, but you are to leave by afternoon and infiltrate one of Orochimaru's hideouts within the Sound. Your mission is to retrieve Sasuke, by force should he refuse. You can get any information you can get your hands on about Orochimaru's activities. Jiraiya says it has been reported that he isn't moving around a lot since the time has come for him to change hosts. Sasuke will be his next target. We must get Sasuke before Orochimaru gets him. Sakura smiled pleasantly upon hearing all that. News about her dear Sasuke has been rare. Whenever she had asked her master about it, the woman has always said she doesn't have anything new to tell because Orochimaru wasn't an easy person to track down. She had gotten the idea that Tsunade was not actually pulling all the strings in an attempt to find her teammate. She wouldn't even be surprised if there was no team that was assigned specifically for that purpose. In any case, she was happy that they now had a chance to get Sasuke back to the village. She could even show him much she has grown. He had often called her a dead weight and useless, something she accused Naruto of being when the blonde contributed to the success of their team as much or perhaps even more than Sasuke. Sakura looked towards Naruto. The blonde Uzumaki showed no reaction to this. There was nothing in his face that he was as excited as she was. That was just wrong, right? Although she may not admit it to anyone, Naruto and Sasuke had been close. She had envied their relationship at times. So, she expected the blonde to be happy about this information. Kakashi turned to the Pinkett and gave her his famous eye smile. The Jonin addressed his team. I recommend that you prepare yourself for a long journey. We don't know much time this will take. Say your goodbyes and prepare everything for the mission. We will meet in 3 hours by the gates. Sakura nodded before sending a glare at her sensei. You better not be late, sensei. Kakashi looked surprised. Where did that come from, Sakura? You used to make us wait for hours. Ma. The Jonin waved it off dismissively. I always had a good reason. Yeah, like you stopped to help an old lady. Sakura said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. She said nothing further before walking away from the office to go prepare. Neji followed the medic shortly. Everyone else left, leaving just Naruto and the Godime Hokage. Naruto had questions to the woman sitting behind the desk of responsibility. Why? Tsunade acted ignorant in her response. Why what? If it is about Neji, I have already explained. Yamato. He was just a stand-in since Kakashi was always busy. Besides, this is a personal matter for Team 7. If there are people who can convince Sasuke to return to the Leaf, it is you guys. Naruto shook his head. He understood those reasons. Sasuke wasn't connected to anyone outside of Team 7. Hell, the Uchiha had been a lone wolf, even some members of the Konoha 11 can't call him a friend. Perhaps sometimes it was because he was in. Why am I being sent out when Jiraiya just told me that it would be dangerous for me to leave the village because there is a gang of criminals that is potentially targeting Jinchurikis? It made no sense to simply send him out after learning of this. Unless the Godime had plans in hand, this was a risky move. But he could understand the need for Team 7 for be the one to take the mission. It was nevertheless a surprise and curious why Tsunade would allow him out, especially when there was Danzo. I have taken precautionary measures in case they appear. You don't need to worry about it. Your focus should be on Sasuke. Tsunade said before changing the subject. I know you were out drinking with your perverted sensei last night, and now this, she said, pointing at the bruises around the blonde. Are you going to be fine? Naruto nodded. I didn't drink too much. Unlike sensei, I know my limits. Tsunade nodded. That is at least good. She paused, eyeing her fellow blonde carefully. So, you like women older than you, huh? That was awkward. Naruto shook his head, getting over his surprise over that statement from the Godime. You are way too old for me, grandma. Tsunade formed a tick mark on her forehead before throwing a stack of papers towards Naruto's face. Naruto laughed. Don't worry, Ba-chan, I won't be turning out like Jiraiya. Besides, girls my age don't hang out in such places, they probably go to fancy places on dates. I'm afraid I have never considered something like that. The blonde said before disappearing without another word. Kakashi's place. The Jonin had already packed up his things. He was sitting by the window, looking at the old photo of Team 7. He was really happy that he could get the chance to try to convince Sasuke to return to the Hidden Leaf. The kids had tried last time out and had failed. But Kakashi knew that it was Naruto's growth that had scared Sasuke away. Orochimaru's offer for more power hadn't helped matters. Sasuke had always been power hungry. He has always craved for more power to kill his brother for what he did to their clan. Kakashi had known this, but the Uchiha had been turning a new leaf. He had almost died trying to protect Naruto, and honestly, he had appeared happy in Team 7. Perhaps one thing that made him a little closer to Naruto, even though they constantly bickered, was because they could relate in their loneliness. He really hoped that they could meet Sasuke once more and bring him back to the village. There was a lot of darkness, but the Uchiha has shown that he can be good. He just didn't know how things would go with Naruto. The Jonin looked up the tree, creating a shade over the window. Jiraiya was sitting there, wearing a serious expression on his face. I was going to look for you to ask a couple of questions. The Jonin said. I know it is good, the mission, but it seems convenient to me that you'd only choose to reveal this information when preparations are being made for Danzo. Not to mention the risk of taking Naruto of the village. Kakashi was certain that there was something behind the scenes at work. It could even be that they wanted Naruto out of the village whilst they carry out Danzo's elimination. But it would bring questions because last time he checked, Tsunade was happy with Naruto taking part in the mission. So what could have changed? How was your sparring session with Naruto? Jiraiya asked, opting to ignore Kakashi's question. I was taking him seriously. Kakashi said. His speed has increased and his movements are no longer wasted. He still doesn't have a definitive taijutsu style, but his movements are refined. But I guess it works for him given his large chakra reserves and never-ending stamina. He didn't seem to drop a sweat in our session. Then again, the blonde has always been a stamina freak. Being a Jinchuriki helps matters, and there is the Uzumaki gene to factor in. Jiraiya nodded, smiling, at least happy that Naruto was able to give Kakashi a run for his money. The brat trained as if he was training for war. I swear when necessary, he can fight for the whole day without running out of chakra. If he continues to train the way he was, his body will be a battle-trained machine that can take any damage it receives in his prime years. The Sannin shook his head. To answer your question, I have decided that Naruto shouldn't be involved in the mission. It would pose a major threat to his mental stability. He is exhibiting some indifferent signs that need to be dealt with before he takes on anything serious. During this mission, you should also observe him closely. His apparent detachment over some things is worrying. I have already said that Naruto was no longer the same as he was back then. Even I don't know what is inside his head. I'm also interested in how his reaction will be when he does see Sasuke. He has refused to speak about. I think this will also be good for him. Seeing Sasuke should enable him to release whatever he is holding inside his heart. Kakashi was silent for a couple of moments as he digested what the Sannin had said. So you are going to carry out the mission in our absence? Jiraiya nodded. It is much easier that way. The Sannin said. We will try to keep Danzo surrounded within the village just to make sure that he doesn't do anything. There is the likelihood that he already has some people on the outside of the village already to check for movements. They might try to take the chance to attack regardless of the odds. There will be Anbu following you, they won't get involved unless it is the Akatsuki attacking. Neji has been brought into speed about what to expect during the mission. Naruto isn't the best censor, but he isn't stupid anymore. But if he uses senjutsu, he will know about everything that surrounds him. He may figure things out, but I doubt he will abandon the mission. I think he also realizes that he must see and talk to Sasuke to sort out his mental issues. What must be done if Sasuke has also changed? Kakashi asked. If Naruto was able to change even though he was with Jiraiya, then there was the possibility of Sasuke being corrupted by Orochimaru. The Uchiha has always looked as if anyone could manipulate his actions, as long as that person was powerful and gave him power. There was no doubt Orochimaru would improve Sasuke. The Uchiha was also highly skilled. If Naruto has improved this much, the Uchiha's improvement is bound to be frightening. In the case of the Uchiha becoming evil, what would he do? Kakashi wanted to save Sasuke, but he didn't miss the fact that the Uchiha could turn on the leaf and actually try to kill them in the process. If there is a chance of Sasuke becoming any enemy of the hidden leaf, they had to do something about it. Sasuke has to be brought back by force or willingly. Jiraiya was firm in saying that. If he does become an enemy of the hidden leaf, he will have to be treated as such. At the moment, even though he is in the bingo book, he hasn't done anything to warrant Hunter Nins after him. However, if he does threaten to attack the leaf, decisive measures have to be taken. We cannot offer him special treatment because he is the last Uchiha. The leaf is bigger than the revival of a single clan. Sasuke-kun. Sakura called her sweetheart, who was looking down at them from a high point. Finally, she was seeing the boy she loved in Kami. He had grown and was still looking delightful. Those were not the thoughts that Sakura should have now. They had to try convince him to ditch Orochimaru and join them back to Konoha. They had finally made it to him. She was seeing him for the first time since that night he thanked her and then knocked her out. It was a night that convinced her that Sasuke did feel something for her. Because of that night, she believed that they could convince him to go back home where he belonged and where he was loved. And maybe they could start a relationship. Sakura quickly shook her head. Now wasn't the time to be thinking about such things. The Uchiha glanced at the Pinkett for a second before looking at his former sensei. Kakashi had taught him something and it was actually used as the base of most his lightning jutsus. In any case, he wasn't going back to these people, if they had come to fetch him or try to convince him to turn back to Konoha. He no longer had any emotional attachment to these people, so he wasn't going to go back to that damned village. His mission was to find his brother and avenge his clan. No one would get in the way of his revenge, not these people, not Orochimaru. No one. Seeing them didn't even stir anything inside of him. He felt nothing but cold vengeance that was directed towards his brother. Everyone else was just in the way. Of course he had no plans to give his body away to Orochimaru. He was merely using the snake and he would get rid of him when he has lived his usefulness. Sasuke. We don't have to explain to you why we came here, Kakashi said to the Uchiha. He should know that they were here for him, nothing else. Orochimaru was still a wanted man by Konoha, but that wasn't a priority. Sasuke was. The Uchiha stared at the Jonin for a second before looking towards his former teammate, the loud-mouthed blonde idiot. Naruto showed him an interesting expression though, an expressionless mask. There were no words even coming out of the blonde's mouth. He expected Sakura to say something, but the blonde would normally be shouting this and that, yet this time around, he was silent as a mute. Why? Orochimaru hadn't said anything. He merely informed him that the blonde was training with Jiraiya. Sasuke hadn't been interested enough to even ask how the training was going. Even when Orochimaru offered to tell him, I have no interest in going back to Konoha, Kakashi. Sasuke responded in a cold tone. It was cold enough to make Sakura cringe. So you are going to fight all of us? Kakashi asked sternly. No matter how far the Uchiha has grown with his training, he couldn't possibly think that he could take all of them, right? But Kakashi would not be surprised. Although a genius, Sasuke has had problem with arrogance. It was a beast he was never able to tame during their time back in Konoha. Orochimaru wasn't even a role model in taming arrogance. The Sannin was well known for his pride and arrogance. Before Sasuke could respond, Neji addressed Kakashi. The Anbu who have been following us have moved closer. It is reasonable to think they were waiting for this kind of moment to arise before charging in. Kakashi frowned, even though it didn't show over his masked face. This just meant that they would have to watch over their backs because a lapse of concentration and those people would be sneaking from behind for one fatal blow. They couldn't retreat though, not when Sasuke was just in front of them and no sign of Orochimaru. Although, this was a curious case. Just keep an eye on them, Neji. You don't have to move unless they move. Kakashi ordered in a serious tone before turning to Sasuke. Where is Orochimaru, Sasuke? The Uchiha did not respond to the question. He merely vanished from his position within a blink of an eye. Naruto raised an eyebrow when the Uchiha appeared in front of him, black eyes staring into his with no emotions at all. The Uchiha's speed had increased. He was perhaps faster than Kakashi. But it wasn't surprising given that the Uchiha had always been fast. His speciality had never been speed. Uzumaki Naruto was a powerhouse, a man with the chakra and stamina to outlive everyone in a fight. I did not think you'd still be chasing after me, Naruto, Sasuke said coldly. Have you come back for S? Sasuke did not get to finish what he wanted to say to the Uzumaki. Naruto's right hand grabbed his face. It wasn't that he hadn't seen it, he had, but it had come so unexpectedly and fast that he didn't get the time to react in time to avoid it. The grip was firm. It almost felt as if his face was being gripped by an iron claw. The blonde's fingers were digging into his skull, causing him pain. Naruto's face didn't reveal any emotions, it remained expressionless. Chasing after you. I did that and you stabbed me in the chest, Sasuke. The blonde stated in a same cold tone as Sasuke. Come back for some more. Do you think you can do it, Sasuke? Naruto asked in a whisper, right at the Uchiha's ear. Sasuke grabbed Naruto's arm with his hand, with his teeth gritted together in anger at being caught by surprise by the blonde and the lack of physical power to get out of the grip. He wanted nothing more than to literally shock the blonde with a dose of lightning and then kick them on his gut, just to show him who was boss. Before he could release his jutsu, a force of wind slammed into his chest. It wasn't like a punch, just a force that pushed him away from the blonde. He would have stuck if he didn't let go of Naruto. He did and was pushed away from the blonde. Sasuke figured Naruto sensed the build of chakra and took measures to avoid his jutsu. It was almost like the old days with him glaring at Naruto. The blonde infuriated him by smiling. What? You thought we're the only one who was learning things? The blonde asked. Ridiculous, but not surprising since it is you. If you want to come at me to test me, you're welcome to try, but I assure you, it will not be as it was last time. Sasuke glared. Naruto. Sakura said, rushing towards the blonde Uzumaki. We don't have to fight Sasuke-kun if he doesn't want to fight. There is no need to provoke anything. We can talk through this, the Pinkett said. Admittedly, she was a little unnerved by Naruto's tone. Naruto's face kept towards Sasuke, but his eyes narrowed towards his teammate. Sakura would always be on Sasuke's side, wouldn't she? She loved the Uchiha, and since he hasn't done anything bad towards Konoha, she would always try to be gentle with him. Naruto wasn't interested in treating Sasuke like a child. Sasuke was a grown man. He didn't look like a little boy who needed to be treated gently so that he doesn't cry out to his evil brother. What to do? He didn't want to be cold to her, but he could. She was being a problem here. She had to learn to rid the atmosphere or else she would not survive. She may as well go home if she was going to be like this. I see you're still annoying as ever, Sasuke said to Sakura. Get this straight. I'm not going back to Konoha. Sakura halted every thought in her mind at the thought of being annoying. That was something that Sasuke has always said to her, wasn't it? Quite honestly, it hurt her feelings to hear that from the boy she loved. It has always hurt her, but she could not stop loving that brooding Uchiha, no matter what. Had it been Naruto saying something like that, she would have rushed over him to smack him, but she has never been able to do that to Sasuke. Thinking of the blonde, she had always accused the blonde of doing something like that, hadn't she? Was this what he felt when she shouted those words and told him to take a hike? Was this why Sasuke told her that she didn't know anything about being lonely and told her off when she had mouthed off saying that Naruto was an idiot who didn't know anything because he didn't have parents to teach him manners? Being an orphan wasn't a laughing matter, was it? Perhaps it was time she accepted that if there was someone who could understand Sasuke, it would be Naruto. Circumstances were different, but both knew what it meant to be alone in this world. She hadn't realized back then, and she had compounded to it. Because Sakura was no longer the ignorant girl she had been back then, she quickly got over her hurt and turned towards Sasuke. Sasuke, I know you care for us, I know, I saw it that night you left, remember what you said to me, Sasuke. Sakura put on as much emotion in her tone as she could muster. At this stage, she was even willing to entertain the thought of leaving with him if he did not want to go back to Konoha. For her Sasuke, Sakura would do that. Yet, her pleading with she-boy she loved was met with cold indifference. You don't understand anything, Sakura. I don't care for you or anyone in Konoha. Just stop chasing me because I will not return to Konoha. Please, Sasuke-kun, Sakura was now begging. It seemed to annoy Sasuke than to make him consider how much the Pinkett felt about him. He didn't want anything to do with Konoha. He was more concerned about improving himself for the day he has to face his treacherous brother, Itachi. He would not allow anyone to get in the way. No one. Sasuke disappeared in a blur. The movement was so fast, Sakura didn't see a damn thing before the Uchiha flashed in front of her, with his right hand flashing towards her face. The beat of her heart quickened in slight fear and it reflected heavily on her expression. Sakura was honestly afraid that Sasuke would harm her just because of the look on his face. He had stabbed Naruto through the chest, wouldn't he do the same to her, and the Uzumaki was supposed to be a lot closer to him than her. Sakura didn't just stand there. Even though she knew she was late, she still tried to jump back, but it was too late. Sasuke's open palm suddenly stopped just inches away from her face. There was another appearance. Naruto was standing just on her left, his right hand holding firmly onto Sasuke's arm. The kunoichi breathed a heavy sigh but stopped her movements. Sasuke's eyes narrowed towards Naruto, but it was the blonde who spoke. What are you doing, Sasuke? What does it look like I'm doing to you? Sasuke responded in a cold tone. Let go of my hand, Naruto. Or what? You will pierce your Chidori through my chest once more. Sasuke's Sharingan flared to life. Naruto's grip on his arm was firm, felt like iron. The blonde didn't look like it, but he certainly had more physical prowess than him. But Sasuke was certain that he was faster than the blonde. Speed had never been Naruto's strength. If I do that, I won't miss your heart this time. That's amusing, Sasuke. Can you miss a target with the Sharingan guiding you? The only way you can miss when it is your hand that's moving as if I dodge. Naruto said. Then again, even if with the Sharingan, you have always been a blind and ignorant tem. Sasuke's eyes left Naruto. The blonde hadn't been looking at him. But that wasn't the reason he stopped looking at him. The blonde's hold was cutting the flow of blood and chakra towards his hand that made it impossible for him to manipulate chakra. I see you're not as stupid as you were back then. The Uchiha said before he deactivated his Sharingan. And I see Orochimaru hasn't raped your mind int. Naruto never got to finish speaking as Sasuke attacked. Fast, the Uchiha brought his left arm behind and grabbed his blade before swinging it towards Naruto. He had to go through Sakura first, but the Pinkett moved quickly by jumping back to avoid the blade. In a split second, just after Sasuke's blade missed Sakura, Naruto used his hold on Sasuke's arm to pull to the Uchiha forward. It was a quick pull meant to bring him off balance. Sasuke managed to balance his feet quickly to avoid falling, but the movement managed to halt his sword strike. The Uchiha didn't mind it as he was now freed. He wasn't even quick to attack Naruto as he first held out his right hand and had a feel of his fingers. His fingers had seriously been getting cold. The Uchiha then twisted around quickly, lifting his left foot up towards the back of Naruto's head. Even though he wasn't looking, Naruto still managed to dodge the blow by ducking under the kick. The moment Sasuke's foot passed above him, Naruto twisted around in attempt to face the Uchiha, but when he turned, he found Sasuke's blade flashing towards his chest. The Uchiha wasn't even looking at him when he drove his sword toward him. Naruto cursed the Sharingan for its abilities. The blonde quickly folded 2 fingers and his thumb from his left hand before making motions as he whispered a couple of winds. He was simultaneously doing the same with his right hand. A slight wind force slammed into Sasuke's blade. It had just enough force to divert the blade to the left side, avoiding him. Another wind force slammed into the side of Sasuke's head, making the Uchiha bend his head slightly. There wasn't enough power to do any damage, just enough to impact the Uchiha's movements. Sakura charged in, her powerful fist heading towards Sasuke. The Uchiha flashed away before the kunoichi could land a hit on him. Even though he was Sasuke, the Uchiha didn't hide his surprise when Sakura's monstrous punch slammed into the ground. Even Naruto was forced to flee when the ground burst as if something heavy had crashed down from the heavens. When Sasuke landed from the ground, Orochimaru suddenly made his appearance, seemingly appearing from the ground along with Kabuto. "I thought you'd be over this already, Sasuke," the snake Sannin said, glancing at between Naruto and Sakura. "Are you hesitating because it is your former teammates?" Sasuke didn't offer a response. He merely looked back at Naruto. The blonde had improved. Maybe he could get a much better test of his powers than what Orochimaru has been giving him. "Naruto, we have to consider pulling out," Kakashi warned the blonde. Things had changed drastically with Orochimaru's presence. He wasn't willing to engage the Sannin in a battle. They would lose. Naruto understood one thing. Orochimaru was a powerful shinobi they had been warned against fighting. Naruto wasn't planning on doing that, but he knew if it wasn't Danzo's pets overlooking them, the Jonin would have made an attempt. If those Anbu were not here, things would be different. "No," Naruto said to Kakashi. He could fight Sasuke whilst those 3 fight Orochimaru. Oh, there was Kabuto. The man was ranked a Jonin. But the Anbu also made things very difficult. "Well, yes," Kakashi said. "We should have done something before we even got here, but I didn't want us doing anything that would leave us vulnerable in this fight." Naruto nodded. He could understand the Jonin's thinking, but had it been him, he would have handled the Anbu before knowing that such a situation was a possibility. "Give me a minute to remove those Anbu." "Huh. Don't be thinking about doing anything stupid, Naruto." When Naruto ignored Kakashi, Sakura sighed. Were they back to this again? Naruto had always done on his own. He hadn't been the one to follow a plan. He had been prone to jump towards the enemy without any thought. She'd thought he would have erased that part of him, but some things never change, huh? Naruto looked at both Orochimaru and Sasuke for a moment before diving into his thoughts. Not for a moment did he think he could actually win against both Orochimaru and Sasuke without having to use both Senjutsu and the Kyuubi's power. But he didn't want to get that far. He could play around with Fuden for a little while. Besides, he didn't have to fight the 2 opponents. The only problem in the way of things was the Anbu, who he presumed were Danzo's agents, sent to perhaps attack them. He just had to get rid of them and things could perhaps be even. Orochimaru didn't even look himself anyway. Last time he checked, the snake Sannin wasn't at his best, and it was around that time when his body was starting to wear off. He would need to be moving to another host soon. Sasuke was already at that stage where the Sannin could possess him, but he doubted Sasuke would allow himself to be taken over by the snake. No doubt the Uchiha has been using Orochimaru for power, but the moment the snake shows a moment of weakness, Sasuke was going to pounce. Maybe then, he would feel powerful enough to hunt down his treacherous brother. Naruto didn't care for any of that. For now, he had a mission. Without much further thoughts, Naruto did a couple of hand seals before slamming his hands on the ground. He reverse summoned a clone loaded with natural energy. Within a second, the clone disappeared in a puff of smoke. Orochimaru looked interested in seeing the blonde Uzumaki's slight changes. He smiled. "Senjutsu," he said. "I see Sasuke-kun wasn't the only one who was training over the past couple of years. Did you expect anything less?" Naruto said in a flat tone. "Kyuubi, a bit of your chakra," Naruto said to the Biju. "I need it on both legs. I need to move fast enough to catch both Orochimaru and Sasuke off guard." Sasuke appears to be faster than base me. I don't know about when using Sage mode, but with a mix of your chakra, I should work out fast enough before they can do anything, even if Sasuke is using his Sharingan. Kurama was slightly surprised. That would be like going all out, the Biju said. Do you want to take them out? No. The Anbu watching us. I have marked down their locations and will be able to move quickly to handle them. Orochimaru and Sasuke are just in the way, Naruto responded calmly. Kurama merely nodded before pouring out some of his chakra. Without a warning, Naruto simply vanished. Both Orochimaru and Sasuke couldn't hide their shock when the Uzumaki simply appeared in front of them. Even Kabuto's shock was evident. No one had a chance to do anything as Naruto's fists slammed into their chests, his left pummeled into Sasuke and the right into Orochimaru. There was an audible sound of bones cracking when the punches connected before the two were blasted away like bullets with blood spewing out of their mouths. Orochimaru hissed loudly as he felt the air leave his lungs. He was sure there were a couple of broken bones inside. The punch had felt no different than one of Tsunade's punches. It certainly won't be healthy taking another one of those in the kind of condition he was. Hell, even if he was fine, this was the kind of blow that he would do everything to avoid. When the Sannin finally landed on his knees, he tried to stand up from the ground, but fell down before spitting out more blood from his mouth. Orochimaru hissed once more. He needed to change bodies quick. He wasn't looking forward to fighting anymore. Still, if he was able to take so much damage from that punch, what about Sasuke? Orochimaru turned to the side to look at Sasuke. The Uchiha was on his knees, wiping blood off his mouth, but looked hurt than he wanted to show. He looked rather pissed off. Kukukukukukuku. Orochimaru laughed before composing himself. You shouldn't feel so down, Sasuke. That is just the power of Sage Jutsu. Besides, Naruto had also mixed in the power of the Kyuubi. A normal person usually cannot stand up to a shinobi who has mastered at art of senjutsu. Still, it is surprising that Naruto-kun has perfected his Sage mode when Jiraiya has failed. Are you praising him? Sasuke asked with a glare. Well, considering that he was unskilled couple of years ago, it is something to be praised, Orochimaru said. The Sannin looked towards the other Konoha shinobi and frowned slightly. Not the perfect time to fight. Well, he didn't have to fight them. Orochimaru-sama, Kabuto shouted, checking his master. That caught even me by surprise. Are you okay? Orochimaru nodded. Summon the pets I'd locked down for experiments. They should be able to stall the other leaf shinobi. Hi, Orochimaru-sama. Moments earlier, Naruto didn't consider attacking Kabuto because he knew that the glass-wearing nin would be more focused on Orochimaru than trying to attack him. He could move freely without having to worry about the spy stabbing him in the back, well, at least trying to do so. The Uzumaki didn't even spare the former Konoha nin a glance before once more vanishing. Kabuto could only blink when Naruto disappeared. Everything had happened in an instant that even after Naruto disappeared, the shinobi was still rooted to the ground, having not moved. There were 6 Foundation agents hiding in the trees. Naruto didn't need to chase after them by climbing up the trees. He simply appeared below the trees, holding out his invisible wind sword. We didn't think that you'd come to us, one of the Foundation agents said as the 6 surrounded him within seconds of appearing within the trees. But it doesn't matter. Our mission is to capture you. I don't suppose you will come without fighting. Amusing, Naruto responded in a low tone. The blonde wasn't looking at any of them. To be quite honestly, he had mixed feelings about these people. They had caused him pain by playing along with Danzo's schemes. He was going to fight them and they would end dying, but Naruto didn't want to think that it was simply doing it for revenge. Perhaps he could pass it off as doing the world some justice. It wasn't a situation of kill or be killed, they wanted him alive. Naruto shook his head. Did he really need many reasons to justify killing a couple of cold-hearted humans? What kind of demon was he? The first one attacked from behind. The man lunged towards him, a kunai held firmly on his right hand, aimed at the back of his neck. Naruto closed his eyes to focus clearly on his senses. He could see the steady chakra of the other 5, but they did not move, not until he moved to defend himself against the incoming attack. Naruto's body twisted clockwise just a bit. His right hand still held firm to his wind blade and he held it on a reverse grip. He as the man's kunai neared him, Naruto tilted his head to the side to avoid the blow. His blade had been waiting, and when the man charged in, he hit the invisible sword and it went through straight his chest. Their others could only see blood gushing out, they could not understand what was happening. Yet, they didn't dwell on it, they all attacked. Naruto released a small burst of chakra before snapping his left fingers. The air pressure became dense, so much that the Nei agents slowed down slightly. It felt as if there was a pressure coming off Naruto pushing things away from him. It wasn't a powerful pressure that blasted you away, but it made breathing difficult. It first felt like that, but seconds later, breathing became impossible. It almost felt as if even the air inside of them was being sucked out. The blade on his right hand dispersed and the man it had pierced started to fall. Before the man fell, Naruto threw 5 kunais into air whilst making one-handed seals to manipulate the air pressure he had created. The man behind had yet to fall when he muttered his jutsu. Wind style. Wind god's presence. The men were slammed into the ground before they could reach the Uzumaki. They slammed down with their faces as if an invisible force had just dragged them down. It had happened in an instant. Once they were on the ground, Naruto raised his right hand. Fall. The kunais he'd thrown up became coated with wind as gravity attracted them. Naruto took control of them though, and the moment he uttered, "Fall," they blitzed down in 5 directions before piercing through at the back of each men through their necks. There was so much speed and power that even Naruto couldn't track them down as they fell. They pierced through their target and embedded straight into the ground. Naruto snapped his fingers once more before falling on his knees, both hands on his chest, breathing heavily. The curse of using a double-edged jutsu. The Uzumaki didn't get the chance to retain his full breath as 2 large snakes slithered through the ground, charging towards him on different directions. The Uzumaki didn't even get the chance to stand when the snakes reached him. He could only hold out both his hands. The snakes slammed into an invisible wall of wind, but they still attempted to push through. Naruto heard chirping birds, and before he could do anything, Sasuke appeared in front of him, Chidori flashing toward his chest. Naruto didn't even have time to react to it, but the Uchiha suddenly looked to his left and directed his jutsu there. A large rock was hurled towards him in great speed. To avoid being hit by the rock, Sasuke slammed his jutsu into it, shattering it. His movement gave Naruto an opening and he used it effectively. The blonde raised his foot from the ground and slammed it to the side of Sasuke. The Uchiha was sent flying into the air when the kick connected. He was however able to recover quickly by doing a replacement jutsu to go to a safe place. Naruto was still trapped between the 2 giant snakes. He needed to move out soon to avoid another attack like that. Someone could attack him from behind. The Jinchuriki quickly jumped up whilst still holding out his right hand. The moment he got out of way, the snakes hissed dangerously as they slammed into each other. Above the ground, Naruto formed a giant Rasengan before turning to face the 2 snakes who'd yet to separate. The blonde lunged down in great speed, slamming the jutsu right between the 2 reptiles. The second the jutsu collided with the snakes, it exploded into a huge explosion of chakra, forcing Naruto to jump away. Seconds ago with Sasuke. "Jump in, Sasuke," Orochimaru called out to the Uchiha, who looked ready to continue with his attack on Naruto once more. Even though the blonde had been impressive so far, Orochimaru still thought Sasuke could win. However, they needed to get out of this place soon. He didn't want this coming into a full-blown out battle which had the probability of seeing the Kyuubi come out to play. "Are you thinking of running away?" Sasuke but still jumped over to the Sannin, who was standing atop of a snake along with Kabuto. "Fighting is no longer necessary," Orochimaru stated calmly. "I don't want any more surprise." The Sannin trailed off before coughing. Sasuke wasn't surprised. He has been seeing it all lot these days. He never asked, but he knew why the Sannin was like this. "You are looking pathetic as the days pile up," Sasuke stated in a cold tone, crimson eyes glowing over the Sannin. Orochimaru merely grinned. "It doesn't help that the Sandaime sealed away my hands inside the Shinigami's stomach. I don't use ninjutsu, and without a part of my soul, I'm in constant pain." The Sannin said, "I'd like to give you a mission to take. Help me." "What mission?" "I will give you the location, but it is in the outskirts of Konoha and you are to go there to get me one of the Uzumaki's treasures." "Uzumaki? Naruto?" Sasuke inquired. "Oh yes, Your generation doesn't know, but the Uzumaki were a prestigious clan and very powerful. They were destroyed because of that power, Orochimaru said. That is irrelevant nonetheless. Can you do this for me? Sasuke said nothing. He was most focused on the fact that Naruto was also from a clan. There was no other Uzumaki in the Hidden Leaf, but Orochimaru did have another Uzumaki with him. Yes, Karen. Naruto never said anything about his clan, which meant he probably didn't know anything as well. When do I move? He asked Orochimaru. Meanwhile, that is about the last of them, Neji said after defeating his last opponent. It seems as if this is nothing more than a diversion for Orochimaru. Might be trying to escape. Escape wasn't the right word in the situation, considering that Kakashi knew of the snake's power. But the Jonin wasn't going to dispute it. There is no need to pursue, the Jonin stated calmly. We'd just get in a tight spot should we do that. Battling Orochimaru was never part of the plan. Hokage-sama had said we must avoid the Sannin at all costs. All plans were thrown out of the window when he decided to act on his own, Neji said of Naruto. He may be a calmer now, but there is that part of him that still remains. Regardless, I think the situation couldn't have gone any better. The moment Orochimaru appeared, everything changed. Kakashi nodded. At least no one got hurt, the Jonin said before sighing. Mission failed, but there would be another day. On another note, Sasuke was merely a second mission to what must be done in the leaf. The mission there was much more important than getting Sasuke back to the Hidden Leaf. Even though he was watching Sasuke leave, Kakashi wasn't that sad. At least Sakura could see Sasuke. Orochimaru had yet to take him, so that presented them with the hope that they could still get them. He would have liked to have talked with the Uchiha, but this had to do. They just had to return to the leaf now. There wouldn't even be a need to hurry. Even if they do take a couple of days to return to the village, there would be no complaints. Kakashi looked at Sakura. The girl already looked depressed. The Jonin sighed. It was going to be a long journey back to the village. I thought you were going to pursue, Kakashi said as Naruto slowly walked over towards them, no longer in sage mode. I'm not stupid, Naruto gave a flat response. Maybe back then I would have, but not now. Besides, you weren't giving your all to try to get Sasuke. Kakashi merely smiled. What makes you say that? He asked innocently. Naruto shrugged. Just something I observed, he said. Doesn't matter now. We saw Sasuke. He hasn't changed much. The bastard would serve well in a harem in one of Jiraiya's books. He had too many fans when he was younger. I'm sure he will have many. Isn't that right, Sakura? The girl blinked. Well, Sasuke had grown and he was handsome. She had almost blushed when she first saw him after so long. See, Naruto said, pointing at the tainted cheeks of Sakura. Fangirls. He shook his head disappointedly. Hey, what is that supposed to mean? Sakura shouted. You know I saved you from being stabbed by Sasuke, right? Kakashi smiled. Now that just took away the gloomy cloud that had been hanging over the girl's head. Naruto was really a different person. Not long ago, he would not have been able to read the situation like that. Yet, he wasn't going to ignore that Naruto had killed 6 NA agents. Kakashi would not say anything about it. Not now, but it would be on his mission report. In response to Sakura, Naruto raised his hands, waving them. No harm meant was the message. The blonde then turned to Kakashi. We should head back to Konoha. Kakashi responded with nonchalance. Meh, there is no need to hurry back to the village, he said. It was for a split second, but Kakashi received a sharp narrowed look from Naruto and the Jonin didn't miss it. It made him slightly worried because if the blonde asked questions, he would soon find out that there was something wrong. Luckily for him, Naruto didn't say anything. The blonde just looked up into the sky. Why are we still going back to Konoha? The Biju asked. If you want to get a piece of the action with Danzo, you have to run now. If not, there is a chance that there will be nothing. I get that feeling as well. If Tsunade and Jiraiya are tricking me, it should be fine. Let me trick me, but I will like to hear their reasons. Maybe this is our last journey to the Hidden Leaf as its shinobi, Naruto said. We must sever our ties with the toads the moment we leave. If not, they will be able to track us down. They are also too nice to be on the evil side of things. I have never liked them anyway. You are just a jealous tenant who only wants me to use his powers, Naruto was quick to say. The following day, Kanahagakure no Sato. The journey back to the village had been a little eventful due to their slow pace. They didn't look like a team that had just failed its official mission. Well, no one had made any promises to come back with Sasuke. Sakura was just happy that she had been able to see Sasuke. Along the way, they had concluded that her dear love would not return to the leaf on his own but would have to forced back. Sakura had to accept that. There was just no way around the issue, even though she really wanted him to come back. Hell, she wouldn't mind being with him. She had offered to go with him back then, but he had refused. If she showed him her strength, would he still refuse? Sakura could not say. As they reached the gates, Kakashi spoke. You guys can home to rest. I will report to Hokage-sama, the Jonin said before disappearing in a swirl of leaves. Sakura sighed before turning to Naruto. Does this mean that we will be having team meetings? I know we are a member short, but we can still manage. There was the hope in her tone and eyes that made Naruto almost lie just to keep her happy. It depends on Tsunade, the blonde Uzumaki stated. Team meetings would be nice though, he said. I'm sure you dying to tell your love rival that you saw Sasuke and he looked handsome as always. Sakura glared at the blonde for a long minute. At least Sasuke-kun is handsome, she said. The girl smiled beautifully before speaking once more. It was nice doing a mission with you once more, Naruto. And for the first time, I saved you, she added proudly. Naruto shared the smile. You have my thanks, Sakura, he said that. But she didn't save his life. He could have reacted to at least avoid getting hit anywhere vital by Sasuke's jutsu. He was nevertheless going to allow the girl to have her moment. I'll see you around, Sakura, Naruto said waving his right hand. Wait, Naruto, Sakura called. Can we meet tonight? Just go out. Just the two of us, I feel like I owe you. There was a bit of nervousness in her tone. Perhaps she was thinking about the fact that Naruto has turned down any attempt for them to sit together. Naruto stared at Sakura for a moment before responding. Sure, why not? Hokage office. Tsunade and Jiraiya were drinking within the office. It was a rare sight. Not Tsunade drinking on duty but doing it with Jiraiya within the Hokage tower. Kakashi didn't even have to ask if they'd completed their mission. The fact that the village was oddly quiet and they were drinking like this meant that they had carried out the assault. You came back empty-handed, Tsunade said to the former Anbu captain. Not that I did not expect it. How did it go? Kakashi handed in his mission report, including that of Naruto's actions in killing Foundation Shinobi. How did things go on your part? Brutal and bloody, Jiraiya said with a shake of his head. He was waiting for us and the freak had 10 Sharingans implanted on his right hand. 10 Sharingans and he kept coming back to life. The Sannin stated before asking. Where is Naruto? Kakashi shook his head. You may want to speak to him soon. I think he suspects something and I have a feeling his reaction to this will be mixed. Jiraiya didn't doubt that for a second but he did what he thought was best for Naruto. The blonde might disagree but it would not change anything. Naruto would be allowed to make his own decision but Jiraiya would not shy away from trying to protect him if he thought there was a need. There had been a need to do this time around and he had done it. Danzo had taken care of and Naruto was spared from having to take part in a senseless bloodshed. He was saying that because even though they had surrounded the War Hawk, the man had still refused to go down without a fight. It was senseless to do so in the situation but they had still had to through it. I will talk to him later on, Jiraiya said before falling silent. Kakashi merely nodded. He thought of telling them about Naruto but he shrugged. It was in the report. They would read it and if they wanted to hear anything from him, they could always ask him. Later that day, Naruto's apartment. Jiraiya didn't get why Naruto still chose to stay in the apartment even though he could afford a better place than this. The apartment was a crappy place. If it has still been back then when he was still a brat, one could understand but he was older now and could move freely without having to worry about anything. Naruto had yet to even replace the furniture within here. Perhaps this place held some sentimental value. The Sannin found Uzumaki sitting by the kitchen table, staring into the empty space ahead of him. His headband was put on the table. It was often that Naruto removed his headband but this signified something. You look depressing again, Jiraiya said to Naruto as he walked over. Naruto faced his sensei before responding. I'm thinking about things, the Uzumaki said. I have always allowed you to do things at your own pace, sensei. I have kept quiet even though I had questions and waited on you to tell me things. My thinking was simply that I trusted you, sensei. I still do. However, we need to talk about my parents. I asked you back then and you only spoke about the Uzumaki. That had kept my mind occupied for long enough, but you must speak now. Jiraiya stared. What makes you think I'd know something? Naruto returned the stare. In a couple of minutes, I will be going out. I'd prefer if you didn't waste time. Jiraiya wore a serious mask on his face. Uzumaki Kushina, that was your mother. Your father was Minato, the Yondaime Hokage. The Sandaime Hokage felt it was for your own safety that you didn't know. Kakashi knows. Tsunade knows. The clan heads know. Some other people might know as well. The Sannin paused to see Naruto's reaction, but there was none. Are you not going to say anything? What can I say? Naruto asked. Do you know how many nights I stayed here, sleepless, trying to figure out who my parents were or if he was really a demon spawn? I asked the Sandaime so many times, but not even once did he feel the need to tell me anything, not even my mother, even though records of her existence are no longer present for everyone. The blonde got up. Thank you for everything, sensei. You taught me so much, showed me many things about life, and I will always thank that. I won't ask you why you had to get rid of me to do the mission involving Danzo, because after everything you have done for me, you deserve at least that. If anything, it felt as if the blonde was saying goodbye. The headband was still on the table even though he was leaving. Where are you going, Naruto? Dinner. With Sakura. Naruto said. I do take pride in the headband, but just for this once, I just want to be a normal person. I don't want to be a shinobi. There won't be another one, but that doesn't mean I mustn't enjoy it. 2 hours later. To be quite honest, it had been a rather eventful night with Naruto. She had been insisted on not calling it a date with Naruto because it would feel as if she was betraying Sasuke. At that thought, she smiled bitterly. Betraying Sasuke. She wasn't even in a relationship with him and he barely even acknowledged her. She had been an annoying teammate, a dead weight who was never a help in their missions, always needed to be saved, did nothing but yell at Naruto whilst blowing kisses towards Sasuke. A truly bitter memory. Naruto has been saying. It is the past. She was no longer the same girl she had been back then. She was a real kunoichi now. A damn good one for that matter. What was outstanding was her medical ninjutsu. Well, she had learned from the best there was. Isn't it something? We have all learned for the legendary Sannins, Sakura said. They too were walking within the brightly lit streets of the Hidden Leaf. Naruto was walking her home. I just hope our stories turn out differently. We will turn out differently. We are not like them in any way even though we have learned from them. Perhaps we are supposed to take ideals of our masters, but circumstances are different and all they can do is impart their knowledge on us, Naruto said. Sasuke would never become like Orochimaru. Maybe he has been cold, but he isn't a heartless person. Sakura nodded at that. I know, she said. Naruto walked in front of Sakura and stopped her. He gave a sad smile with his head tilted to the side. Sakura. Team 7 was my life. I had so many happy memories because it would not have happened if not for Iruka sensei. You were a part of the people that made me feel human, the blonde smiled. You know what I just learned tonight? You should know that the Yondaime Hokage was the one who sealed the Kyuubi inside of me. Ever since I told you about it, have you considered why? Sakura blinked. She had honestly never given it much of a thought. Looking at those blue eyes, blonde hair, looking at him clearly without his forehead protector, he could pass off as a relative to Konoha's greatest hero. The Pinkett shook her head. It simply could not be. I have never wondered why. Naruto continued smiling. I did and always asked the Sandaime, but he never told me anything, the blonde said. He decided against telling the girl anything. He was still in the process of dealing with everything himself. Thanks for the good time and good night, Sakura. The blonde waved his right hand before disappearing along gusts of winds. Hokage Monument. Life was something else, wasn't? Not long ago, he was in the village, crying for it to recognize him, wishing he could be the greatest, even greater than the man called the Yondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. But today, as he stood here, atop of this monument, he was going to leave this village, turning his back on it, and even though the man he wished to surpass has turned out to be his father. The thought truly brought a bittersweet memory. He'd always wanted to know who his parents were. He could ask the Kyuubi about his mother. He knew the Kyuubi was sealed within someone within the village, and Jiraiya has stated that all the Biju's Jinchurikis have been Uzumaki. The first one was the Shodai's wife, then second one could have been his mother, which could explain his use of Uzumaki. He would have more time to deal with it in the next couple of years in seclusion. Being bitter and obsessing about it now won't change anything, but he could deal with his emotions regarding his exit from the Leaf. It would have been fine if they hadn't excluded him in the mission to deal with Danzo. Demanding questions regarding it wouldn't change anything, and he could somehow understand Jiraiya's line of thinking towards the decision. Glancing down at the streets once more, an expressionless mask settled on Naruto's face as he turned away. Sayonara. Konoha. 2 weeks later, Sasuke walked into Orochimaru's room with a mask on his right hand. The snake Sannin was sitting up on the bed, his condition wasn't getting any better. "You took your time," Orochimaru said to Sasuke. "It wasn't easy getting with Leaf Shinobi all over the place," Sasuke responded calmly. "Do you know what happened?" Orochimaru couldn't help but grin before responded. "It appears that Naruto-kun has disappeared for Konoha. I believe after the mission, he went back to Konoha to say goodbye and then went off without a trace." To say Sasuke was surprised was an understatement. He was shocked. That Naruto leave Konoha? The blonde who had always been preaching about wanting to become Hokage one day had abandoned the very same village he vowed to lead to anyone who cared to listen. Sasuke could not believe it. It was just ridiculous. The blonde been trying to get him back to the Leaf, and he abandons it. What the hell was going on? Thinking of it, Naruto had never said anything about taking him back to Konoha. Their only thing Sasuke could remember were insults. But that was nothing unusual. Why would Naruto even leave the Leaf anyway? Sasuke simply could not figure that out. He could not understand why someone who had loved Konoha as much as Naruto had would suddenly leave it. Who did he leave with? Sasuke demanded with narrowed eyes. Alone. It appears that he followed anyone. He left by himself, and I don't think it is to join any other village. He hasn't surfaced anywhere. I believe he will be hiding, if he knows that the Akatsuki is after him, Orochimaru responded calmly. Now hand over the mask. Sasuke looked stone-faced. Handing over the mask meant that Orochimaru could return to his powerful self. And he would be stuck being the Sannin's pet. Naruto was alone. He was doing things by himself. And yet he was here sulking up to Orochimaru. Wasn't he better than the blonde? Sasuke's Sharingan flared to life. It was now or never. Sasuke could not be following Orochimaru around whilst Naruto runs alone, independently without anyone's assistance. Things had to change for him as well. Besides, what more could Orochimaru give him? He has learned what he can from the Sannin. It was time to move on with his life. Orochimaru, it is time I separated from you. Kukukukukukukukuku. Orochimaru laughed madly. I had a feeling this day would come, Sasuke-kun. Konohagakure. Tsunade had never felt so miserable, not since she lost her loved one. Naruto had been drifting away from her, emotionally, but he had been here in Konoha and she could see him at any time she wanted. She hadn't worried much even though things had changed because she had thought, no matter what, Naruto would always be a hidden Leaf Shinobi. Danzo would have been celebrating saying I warned you that he would leave the village. Tsunade thought of the war hawk with contempt. It was good that he was gone. He would probably be trying to find Naruto just so he could brainwash him. Still, this was a disaster. How could the son of Konoha's greatest hero abandon the very village his father and mother had died protecting? Tsunade wasn't going as far as to say that Naruto had spat on his parents' sacrifice. No, the hidden leaf did that when it chose to hate him and see him as nothing more than the Kyuubi reincarnate. In the end, the blonde left Konoha without saying a damn thing. Tsunade would have been less worried if he had bothered to say goodbye, but he did not. He just disappeared from the village without a trace. There was no letter explaining his reasons for departure, just a headband left on his kitchen table. Had it not been Sakura saying that Naruto's words to her had really sounded like a goodbye when she thought of it, they would have realized it a little too late. Well, it didn't change anything anyway. There was still no sign of Naruto and none of their allies have said anything about seeing the blonde. Tell me you have good news, Jiraiya. Tsunade spoke in a hardened tone the moment the Sannin appeared in her office through his usual entrance. Got nothing. Not a damn thing. But I will go back again. I just came to tell you that until Naruto returns, I won't come back to Konoha. I will spend my whole looking for him. Tsunade stared at her former teammate for a couple of seconds before nodding. She should have known that he would be the one most affected by this. He was looking better than her. Are we sure no one took him? Tsunade asked cautiously. Although everything they has determined that Naruto had left the village alone, they could not rule out the thought of the blonde being taken by someone else. I doubt it. Jiraiya said. Can't you find him with the help of the toads? Jiraiya's mood turned south. He no longer has a relationship with the toads. They wouldn't tell me how, but they said he severed his contract after they refused to write him off. Oh, Tsunade could not find anything to say after that. The fact that he had done that just meant that he didn't want to be found. This also brought the possibility that he may have severed his ties with the hidden leaf as well. Thinking of it, Tsunade's mind went blank. A week later, somewhere at the center of the sea, Naruto was standing atop of the water, wearing nothing but short pants. Just away from where he stood, there was a large ship floating within the water. This was a place he was going to learn train. There would be no land to stand on. Each day he fought, he would have to be constantly channeling chakra through his feet to stay afloat. It didn't matter if it was a training of taijutsu or ninjutsu, everything had to happen within the water. With the kind of jutsus he wanted to learn, there was no way he could hide anywhere in the elemental nations. This place would not only offer security from shinobi, but it would be good for him in terms of learning how to control his chakra. Using fire-based jutsus would be difficult in this kind of environment, but he had no other choice other than to do it this way. You do know that if you drown, you are dead. Naruto looked down at the bottomless sea. Certainly, if he were to lose consciousness, he was going to be dragged down into the water and death would welcome him. There was no say he could not avoid falling down out of chakra exhaustion or getting hit by his clones. He just had to provide security in case such a situation occurs. I know, as I develop special bunshin, I will keep what I already on the lookout. I will also loosen up the seal slightly in case such a thing happens. If the opportunity comes for me to take control over your body, don't you, I will do and shut you out. That is a possibility, but I trust you to be a Biju, not a treacherous demon or a backstabbing human. Naruto said to the Kyuubi in a firm tone. We have come this far, I should trust you with my life. Perhaps you are the only one I can trust with my life from today henceforth. I mean, you were inside my mother before moving into me. Don't be trusting like that. Naruto smiled. Not to humans. He said. Let us get this training started. I must be a god by the time I finish things here.